Well, good evening. It's 7 o'clock. This is the regular meeting of council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West, held in the council chambers at 216 Main Street West, Swan River, Manitoba, this 29th day of November, 2022 at 7 p.m. Present this evening, myself, Reeve, Gade, Councillors Byron, Zbirun, Kushniryk, Raymond McGregor, Carrie, Blosha, Neely, and Brian Burick. Joining us also tonight is Interim CAO Ellingson, and we have Mr. Bergen in the gallery with his camera. Welcome. A couple folks on the phone tonight as well. I think we only have the two. Is there anybody else on the phone who's joined us that we didn't hear? If not, we shall carry on. We're going to start with adopting the agenda. There are some changes I'm going to propose. So resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held this 29th day of November 2022 shall be adopted as amended. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Neely, Councillor Burick, you want a second? So I would like to add 7.7 road issues. We'll have a discussion on the roads there. And there is an error on the agenda at the top. The date is wrong. It says the 28th, but really this is the 29th. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to the agenda tonight?
Do I have to go about the Saturdays, or that's in the right?
I have it on there. Yep, 7.6 is there. Okay, hearing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? You want to be in favor?
Yes.
Okay, we'll put you in favor.
Did I forget the
That's Carrie.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. We do not have minutes to adopt tonight, unfortunately. We're going to go past that. Jared did indicate he would be providing a public works report, but so far as yet it hasn't been received. I know he's been very busy, as you can imagine, with the storm. The one thing he was going to try and have for us tonight was quotes on repairing the grader with the transmission issue. So if something should change during the meeting and he brings that in or something, we'll come back to the public works report. But for right now, we don't have one. We're going to go into general business, item 7.1.
I'm gonna excuse myself from
Okay,
this.
so we need to note that Councillor Blosha is leaving the meeting at 7:05 for conflict.
I was going in.
Yeah, we'll come in a few seconds. So in front of you, we have the 2022 supplementary tax notice. This is for November. For folks that are new at the table, municipal taxes often change. If you build a new building, or you change a house, or you tear a house down, your tax bill will change even after the taxes have been issued. So what this is a list of changes that have been made to rolls in our municipality. So as a council, we have to accept these changes. The one notable one that's on here, roll number 128750, the Swan Valley Consumers Co-op, that's a new fertilizer shed. So this effective date is June 1st. So the added taxes is over $8,000 just for a part of the year, which just goes to underscore how important commercial development is. We see people building and having confidence in our area, whether it's our municipality or anywhere in the valley. The more of that commercial stuff we build, the better it is, because they certainly pay a lot in taxes, and it helps out. Every little bit helps.
Pioneer thing out there is gonna help.
Oh, it's going to be huge, very huge. The Pioneer project, the Pioneer one, like some of them, when you get into commercial, there's some strange things that happen in assessment. So you build a house and your house is assessed at $250,000. Your tax bill's pretty cut and dry. But when you're an elevator, it's based on how much grain goes through the elevator, and same with the railways, how much product is hauled. So it's not, it's a $35 million elevator, but you can't just say $35 million assessment, because it won't be that.
Too bad.
Yeah, it would be nice if it was.
Bars are like that too, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of commercial stuff that isn't quite the same as you would expect, but it's still good to have, and hopefully we get some more of it. So I do have a resolution for it. Resolved that in accordance with sections 300 and 326 of the Municipal Act, the changes to the 2023 assessment roll for the Municipality of Swan Valley West shall be accepted by the Council and applied to that portion of the 2022 taxes as described on the reports received from the province of Manitoba Assessment Services Swan River dated November 8th and 16th, 2022, copies of which are attached here too, and that's what we're looking at. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Kushniryk. A seconder, please. Councillor Zbirun. Any further discussion on those? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor?
There's no discussion, we're on the right side of the fence.
We will call up Carrie and we'll ask Councillor Blosha to return to the meeting.
Maybe.
Welcome back. 7.2, Rural Animal Control Officer, October 2022. You have the copy of the report. There's not much on there. The monthly retainer of $100 and a cell phone allowance for $60.
Lots of good dogs out there.
Oh, sorry.
Resolved that the following animal control report shall be received by the council for the Municipality of Swan Valley West. Rural Animal Control Officer's report for the month of October 2022. Be it further resolved that payment for the above services shall be approved as submitted. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Blosha. Someone to second the resolution. Councillor Neely. Any discussion on that report or the resolution? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Item 7.3. You may get a feeling of deja vu. The Rural Animal Control Officer's report for November 2022. This report also provides just the $100 retainer and the $60 cell phone allowance. Resolved that the following animal control report shall be received by the Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West. The Rural Animal Control Officer's report for the month of November 2022. Be it further resolved that payment for the above services shall be approved as submitted. A mover, please. Councillor Blosha. Someone to second the resolution. Councillor Kushniryk. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Seven 4, committee member changes for 2022. We appointed committees a couple weeks back, 3 weeks ago now. One of the appointments for that was Councillor McGregor to the Workplace Health and Safety Committee. Since that appointment, it's become apparent that the committee itself prefers to meet at the latest at 5 p.m. each day, which has caused a problem for Councillor McGregor because he can't necessarily attend. So I wanted to first check with Councillor McGregor to see if he's okay with switching, or if we have to do something about the committee. Are you okay with switching off of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is somebody else interested in taking that spot on the safety committee so that clearly it needs to be somebody to be available between 4 and 6 p.m. because that's when those meetings tend to happen. And there's a second part to it. On Thursday, we will be subject to a safety inspection by Workplace Health and Safety, and there is a hope that perhaps whoever that committee member is may attend the inspection if they're available. If they're not, it's not a huge deal. They don't have to be there. It will be probably Thursday morning, that's what we understand. But even if you can't attend the inspection, it's not a deal breaker that you can't attend, it's an opportunity.
Where does that take place?
Throughout the entire municipality.
Cool.
So you have to go from one building to the other
Yeah.
as he inspects them all.
Anybody interested in being on the safety committee?
I think Brian and I are also already on there.
I can't do 5, I can't do the time.
Okay,
Councillor Neely, good job. We're going to write up a resolution for that here, and we'll make that change. There is also, now that you've volunteered, one other thing. There's some training
oh yeah,
required.
sure.
I think you can do it online.
Yeah, there's some online training that goes with it, so
Like, I don't think it,
Deborah will help you out with what we need to do to get you trained up.
Be what?
There's a little bit of training you have to do at some point too.
on your new,
Yeah.
you're good.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
There's no backing out of it.
No, no.
It's
You're
stone
good.
now.
That was the health and safety committee, right?
Yes. Health and safety.
No problem.
no problem.
We'll get you a
You
special
got
hat.
this. You got this, Carrie.
Give us 2 more seconds and we'll have that resolution ready. I should mention, just while we wait on that, we're still on paper tonight, obviously. There have been some further complications with getting onto the electronic system, so we're still using paper tonight, but we will be making that switch back. Are there a couple councillors who haven't received their devices yet? Okay, so they are here, and the vault is locked tonight, we can't get in there for them, but if you get a chance at some point, your laptops and your iPad is here, so you can grab it when you're by the office someday.
Yeah, I
Do
told
they
you
have
that.
to get them programmed and?
We just talked to Deborah, and she said they're all programmed, ready to go.
Cause I had to get mine, I had to take mine to the Rogers to get it.
No, she said
Well,
they,
Sheila phoned me to see if I wanted the guy to set it up. I said, well, yeah. I'm not gonna, you know, like, so.
Okay, so a resolution, resolve that the following change will be made to the committee, specifically Health and Safety Committee representative will be Councillor Neely. A mover, please.
Nobody.
Too late.
I can leave the chair and second that if you need. A seconder, Councillor Blosha. Any discussion on that? I think you'll have an excellent time there, Councillor Neely. Call the question, those in favor? Those opposed?
I didn't go either way.
Those who want to abstain?
What are all unanimous?
Alright.
What do they call it? Workplace health and
Workplace,
safety?
Safety
Safety
something.
and health, yeah.
Okay, resolution, I don't think this one is pre-typed either, is it?
No.
Okay, so we'll start discussing it and then we will get to the resolution, depending on the will of council. Purchase services, right now, what used to be called shared services is at the current time called purchase services. I don't know if there's particular reasons for that, but it is what it is. So Town of Swan River has sent us an invoice. It's dated September 20th. You got this on email a few weeks back, so everybody's had a copy. The invoice is for $210,072, which represents half of what our commitment is for 2022 to the Town of Swan River for the various things we purchase. And I know there are some concerns around the table, so we're gonna take a little time on this and talk about it. Ultimately, they want to be paid, and we'll go through a bunch of the details here so everybody understands why they think they should be paid. And then we'll likely have to bring a resolution and vote on it.
do I have that here?
It is
No,
not.
No,
It was emailed out ahead, so I don't know. Do you want us to just go make a copy of this quick, so everybody has one? Would that be a good idea, maybe?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So we can follow along.
Do you
with
want a
what
copy
you
of 21 so you can see the differences?
Sure, yeah, I can have it too.
Not the back, but the
Okay,
front.
can you do that too? Okay, so let's move to 7.6, while we wait for those copies. Benito Santa Day. So this came up at a fire committee meeting, that there'd probably be a donation request, and I know Councillor Zbirun wants to speak on this too. So as a council, it's December 7th?
17th.
17th.
Yeah.
Benito's having their Santa Day, which we typically
Yeah.
would support as a council.
They call it now family fun day or something, but
Okay.
whatever.
Has there been a
Same thing,
specific
yes.
request, or what do we want to do?
I just thought it would be nice if we donated, say, the oranges for the kids thing, and they do fundraisers and whatnot, and they go through quite a bit of cooking oil in their deep fryers because they have wing nights and for their fundraisers. And I thought maybe 2 or 3 jugs of oil. Richardson's donated 2 jugs to them already, and I talked to Scott Snyder, and he figures they go through about 7 a year. So I thought if we threw, 2 or 3 or whatever, go to Richards. They're the big jugs, eh? So I don't know how much they cost or whatever, 50 or something for them or whatever. I just thought it'd be a nice gesture on our part, anyways.
Okay. Anybody else have questions, comments, concerns, or different suggestions? Everybody looks pretty okay with that, Councillor Kushniryk?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't know if it's the time or place to bring it up too, but the LUD really didn't have any connections right now. They are going to buy for the candy bags and stuff, so they'll be submitting to be reimbursed for that. I think I'd mentioned to you, I don't know how anyone would feel, I think it's kind of, as these things kind of shrink, maybe it'd be nice to throw a little bit more into it. I was thinking even if we bought something for a coupon for an ice cream cone or something from Dairy Queen, kind of support them or wherever, whatever
Yeah.
people think, just to put a little bit more in those bags and
So
Kind of spread.
are we gonna get this stuff, or are we just gonna give them the money and they can get it themselves?
So whatever you guys
or-
decide.
Like, who's gonna go shopping for this stuff?
Well, I mean, I can go shopping for it, or I can go shopping for it, or if you wanna just, I mean, the oranges are pretty self-explanatory, but I don't know what the oil would cost and how many jugs do you guys wanna,
Somebody with a restaurant and.
yeah.
Yeah. you could
Like
do
I
it.
said, they get it from Richardson out there, eh, and, it's not what Scott told me, so I'm assuming that,
talking to Scott, do you know who's getting buns?
I think, Quick Stop is donating the buns. I think, but I'm not 100% sure of that, but I mean, that's what I thought Ruby-Ann or Kyla was talking about. No?
I don't know.
That's what I think, from what we were talking
Is there
about at the
somewhere
meeting.
different,
eh?
Brad? Like-
No, it was Quick Stop in the past, just make sure they've got the buns in place.
Yeah,
So,
Your jugs of oil should be about $50-$60 for a
is
jug.
that what they are for
Yeah,
those
so
big 18, I think they're 18 liter or what?
Yeah,
is
they're
that
big
right?
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're looking,
yeah.
somewhere in there anyways. Fluctuate, but
So whether we give them a check or we just buy the stuff and deliver it to them, I guess. It's up to us what we wanna do.
we have to write a resolution that says something.
Okay?
So let's find agreement on how we're going to do it.
That's why I asked, like,
Yeah.
or who do we make the check out to, or? you
So
know?
it'd be a rec center, I suppose, eh?
No.
Yeah.
So would council be, like, the path of least resistance would be to give them cash and they go buy it? Is that acceptable, or do we want to actually go and get the product and take it to them?
What are we talking here, $250?
No, well, it's $9 for a box of oranges and they want four. They wanted four, but if, I don't know how many oranges are there in a box. They need for 80 bags, they said, eh?
Yeah, 80's a
About
correct
30
number, and they
oranges
did,
likely in a month.
Couple
Hey.
rotten ones, so do you get them 5 or what? I mean, they're at Quick Stop, they got a big pallet there of $8.99 for a box, so,
Well, let's get 5 then.
so that's
sure they got
$50. So it'd be 100, so $60 a jug, so if we get them 2 jugs, so that's another 120, so we're looking at, well, $200 would more than be enough.
Okay, so would we be agreeable to donating $200?
Towards oranges and oil.
Yeah,
Did you say some kind of coupons too, Brad, or?
just if we wanted to throw something more in the bag, but if we're giving cash, I don't know. However you wanna do it.
yeah, I don't, it doesn't,
Well,
somebody have to go and get,
Cause if we give cash, they're just gonna do what they think, like
Yeah.
what they wanted to put in
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
so.
yeah,
That might be the best thing.
Yeah,
It's gonna be simpler with our time frame.
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if they do it themselves, yeah, let's give them the money.
Okay, so $200.
Okay.
Okay, we will come back to a resolution for that shortly, once, our CAO rejoins us. Let's go to 7.7, road issues. So as you may have known, if you've answered your phone in the last day, from people, there's quite a few ratepayers with concerns about roads. So I want to provide a little update and then get some advice from council on where we should go. At the moment, we have 4 graders, one of them is not operating, because of transmission issues. So we're hoping that we may get quotes yet tonight on that, but that won't be an instant process. That will take a couple weeks likely to repair that unit. We may have to replace the transmission. I can give guidance in that if we're replacing the transmission, $69,000 is likely the price of the replacement transmission plus labor to install it. But there was ongoing discussion about finding a rebuilt transmission.
Would the cat have to be hauled someplace to the city to get this done, or can it be done?
Yes, it
Looks
Yeah.
like it could, it's a deer.
Deer,
It looks
small
like
deer.
it can be done in Swan River.
Okay.
And they're pursuing they're currently checking if it can just be repaired without replacing. There is a thought right now that it may be repairable in more of the $30,000 range. but we haven't seen the actual quotes yet. We were hoping they would get here in time for tonight. But that's sort of the ballpark we're looking at for the repair.
Is that our oldest grader?
It's unit 41, which I believe it's 10,050 hours on it right now, so it's,
They only get a 1,500 a year, so.
yeah. It had, unit 41 had a brand new transmission at 5,000 hours under warranty. It was out on the road and it immediately stopped. It was a show-stopping issue. This one didn't stop on a road. It came in to the shop with a service code for transmission filter plugged. So when they checked it, it was full of filings, like very full of filings, probably a quarter pound of filings in the filter, which is an excessive amount. The filter was last changed about 1,000 hours ago, filter and oil. So that's developed within the last 1,000 hours, but given the code and how it worked, the feeling is it's actually probably developed a lot more recently, just in the last few hours, that something's gone wrong. So that's why that unit's not working. The other 3 units were working today. There certainly were some issues today. We did have at least one unit get stuck. I think it may have become stuck twice, which was the unit being driven by a casual operator. And that may have played a role in that as to why it was coming off the road, just a little inexperienced there yet. From what I understand, Road 218, which is the Pioneer Elevator Road, goes east and west there. Mostly goes west because there's not a lot of east there. That road took half a day by the time we got unstuck and continued on. And the snowbanks there were also over top of the plow on that road already. It's fairly substantial snow in the north section, a lot worse than here in town. So that continues on. We will have 3 units operating again tomorrow, but on Thursday we will run into an issue that we only have 2 operators because of that 3rd unit's currently being operated by a casual operator, and he will not be available on Thursday or Friday, is my understanding. So I wanted council to have some discussion tonight, because I don't know that any of us will be very happy to tell people there's only 2 units operating. We have some options. We could look at finding someone to drive the 3rd unit. So I'd like us to explore what we could do with that. We could look at having contractors go and do some work as well. That's expensive, obviously. It's cheaper to use our own unit if we can, but at the same time, we have a lot of ratepayers that need to get out of their houses and go places. And you know, once we start impacting their ability to go to work or to school, certainly we're not doing what they would like us to do. School buses are cancelled for tomorrow, so we're not having to deal with buses out there in the morning, but I'm sure the school division would like to be operating buses by Thursday. They won't want to lose another day, so they'll certainly be looking to us to have those roads in much better condition. So kind of open it up. What would you folks want to do, and what are you comfortable with?
Is Ralph working yet or not?
Ralph is working today. He's working full-time on it.
And Jared is not able to drive a grader?
Not currently.
And Chris is running the other one.
Chris is running, and Brett was working today, and Brett will be working again tomorrow. But then Brett is off on Thursday, is my understanding.
And you're
He's
looking-
off for 4 days.
And you're looking for people to,
I'm throwing it out there. You know, we looked last night, obviously, we talked a little bit about grader applications. I don't know that there was anything in there that really spoke to being a casual operator. And I don't want to mention names because we're not on camera.
Yeah.
But, you know, the road issue, I think we should discuss in public because people should hear that. So we could look for, I don't have a name in mind right now. We have another day to look for someone to get onto that 3rd machine. We could, as a council, all kind of beat the bushes and see if we could find someone that could operate that machine for Thursday. Would be an option. I haven't contacted contractors yet. I'm sure today they didn't have time, but by tomorrow they would probably have time if we wanted to look at some contract grading. Our budget for that is spent for the year, and spent completely and then some more because of the winter we just had. But obviously we can adjust that and do things, and it's not the end of the world that we're over on the budget line. There's other ways to solve that, and if, you know,
The road's got to be clean.
exactly,
I mean,
we
the
can't
budget-
say, oh, there's no money, let's not clean the roads, we've got to get
Budget,
it
just
fixed.
a budget, I mean, Sometimes you have to go over budget and things.
The
like
old
this.
foreman, I don't know if I can mention names or not, or what,
I don't know if he would be willing, we could certainly ask him.
see if he'd fill in for a couple days.
Yeah. So if council could provide direction, because we don't have another meeting obviously before Thursday. So how would you like to proceed? If we come up with some names, would it be acceptable to council sort of share those names with everybody and ask you for your choice?
Yep.
Would that work for everybody? Say, here's some options, is this okay, is that okay?
Because those roads gotta be opened up. Like, I mean, running two machines, it's,
No, and we do have 3 tomorrow, so like this isn't a tomorrow problem, it's the day after, it's going to become a huge problem. And we could, if we had additional casual people, we could conceivably be running a second shift right now.
can we run two shifts? We can run two shifts, that's,
I don't see why not.
I don't see why not
We
either,
got
but it's just
radio
that-
contact, as long as they got radio contact with
Yeah.
somebody, whether the guy's watching TV or out in another grader, it really doesn't matter, I don't think.
Yeah.
No, we can work around that, there's ways to get a second shift running, if we have the people to run it.
Cause even after the roads are open, we need ridging.
How long does it take to do the whole valley, if they were to do our,
It's 4 graders,
yeah, would it take 4 days?
2.5 to 3 days, I think.
And that would be ideal. We're facing some challenges, the one grader's not moving
Yeah,
as quickly
yeah, yeah.
because of, the newness of the operator. And we're also facing a lot of drifting right now.
Yeah.
Roads, we did roads yesterday, because of the amount of snow overnight. We had people calling and say, we've never touched that road since the storm started, when in reality, we did actually clean the road yesterday.
Yeah.
But you can't tell today.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, like, they went by my place yesterday and you would never know that they did anything, eh?
Yeah. And so we're essentially, the snowfall warning has stopped now, but we're gonna see some wind overnight. So we're essentially starting over again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Everything's going to need to be
Yeah.
plowed again.
The east-west roads will be the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of them, like some of them were my way, some of them blew off some, but not where there's trees. So there's still patches where we need to go back to. And some of it we can go a little faster because there isn't much there.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're talking about contractors, do you have them in mind, like? 'cause
So there's a
you have
list of contractors that are pre-approved that applied for work, so we would just, if we wanted to go that way, I think we would just call down the list and say, who's available, and what can you do? And then we would look to our foreman to say what areas we needed to go.
Would it hurt to get a contract for a couple of days? Like, I mean, not for a long time, but a couple of days is all we're behind, isn't it?
Well,
If we had them
depends
for
on
2, 3
how the wind is blowing.
If we had them for 2, 3 days, wouldn't that open thing? Yeah, it depends, like you say. the
Well, the
wind.
sooner we get them done, the sooner our graders can get out there and
Yeah.
get some ridging.
Yeah.
And because people are stranded, like, they're still stranded right now, like. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments about?
Do you want names of people right now, or?
No, I don't want them in open session,
Okay,
but if, I think I'm hearing that,
That's mine, yeah.
I'm trying very hard to figure out what you guys want.
Whatever it
I
takes.
think it would be ideal.
Whatever it takes.
Get them done.
Thank you.
get it done.
Kind of approach both, right? Could we approach the contractors and have them know which one's ready? But what's it gonna hurt for us to brainstorm for casual if we could line them up for all winter as a second shift or whatever? Otherwise, we'll be in the same boat. Next big storm.
Two cents.
So that,
Okay, that's.
I'm gonna tell you what I think I heard, and if anyone doesn't
Alright.
think that's
Okay,
what we
yeah. Well,
agreed to, please say so.
Right?
I think
One
we've
short.
agreed that we will attempt to find someone to run the third machine for Thursday.
Okay,
We will also look to see if we could find a second shift, if that's possible, we'll look into that. But we will also look to contractors to do a couple days of work
Yeah.
to get things cleaned up. Is
I
that
think
the,
With the second shift, would we need a minimum of 2 drivers, 2 out there to keep in touch with each other,
we need a
or,
minimum of 2 people.
or that's what, yeah?
But if we had 2 drivers, that would be ideal, but we could have a driver and somebody else.
Oh, okay.
You know, as
okay.
long as there's a second person from the talk to, like Councillor
Yeah.
Neely said, even if they're watching TV.
Yeah.
As long as they're available and checking in and making sure
Yeah.
that person's safe.
Yeah,
So that's the will of council, we'll do a couple days of contractor if they're available, but we'll also look to fill up our machines.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, everybody's good with that? Do you want to bring a resolution? I don't think we need one, but if you folks are more comfortable, we could bring a resolution for that.
I think we should, if we're gonna hire someone.
We're spending money, so.
I think we
Okay.
should, yeah.
So let us bring a resolution, and it will say, don't start writing yet in case you change your mind. Resolve that we use contract services and casual operators to deal with the current heavy snow situation.
Yeah, that's good.
Would that work for everybody?
Contractors?
Contractors and casual operators.
Do we put a limit on there of how long the contractors will work, like
You certainly could if you like.
2 days or 3 days, whatever you guys think we need? But I mean, if the wind turns around and starts blowing again, you know, like maybe we need
Yeah,
to.
but then our guys will be sort of caught up.
Well, yeah, that's right.
You know.
So do we say 2 days or 2 days of contracting and?
You can if you like.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, I think the direction I would look to the CAO and the foreman would be to use the contractors as little as possible.
What if we
Because
open
it
it
costs
up,
extra.
so we don't have to visit this again to say as required until the grader's repaired? So we don't have to worry about doing this if we have a snowstorm a week from now.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't run out and hire contractors at will, but if it happens, it's
No, I see-
already in place, we
I
don't
see
have
what you
to.
mean, yeah.
If the boys are getting behind again.
And then once that grader's back on the road, that resolution's dead. It's-
Well, not all of it, because we might have casual days go on a double shift. We want that to be still in place.
What if we put that we use contractors and or casual workers? And then when the contractors are no longer available, the casual would still be covered by this resolution?
Well, we could have it all open, we don't have to use it all.
Oh, no,
Right.
no. Yeah, it doesn't say we have to use
Yeah.
it.
We don't have to have a date on it.
No, I think we're sensible enough to just do what we have to do. I
Yeah.
don't think we're gonna go greater
Yeah, like,
twice in one day.
when you're getting out, so we don't have to do this again next meeting, and call a special meeting to do it or stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
Leave it open-ended.
so put as required?
That sort of covers everything.
Here's what it says right now, see what you think. Resolve that we use contractors and casual workers to deal with the current heavy snowfall.
Well,
When
current
required,
kind of dates, it doesn't.
when required.
When required?
So
Should I strike current?
using casual work, or contract workers, does this open us up to union issues?
We have fairly substantially relied on contractors last winter because of the heavy snow. As long as we're not taking our union operators and leaving them at home.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
okay.
You know, if
Yeah.
we're supplementing, if we're doing extra, it should be okay. It would become a problem if we were saying to our union folks, you stay home today, we're not going to pay you, we'll have a contractor do it instead.
Yeah.
So the suggestion was to strike the word current, so deal with the heavy snowfall. And then you said something at the end,
As required.
as required. Do we want to leave the word current in or take it out? Current would mean
Take
we're
it out.
only referring to this storm, whereas
Yeah,
Yeah, like Brad said, we got another one.
You want them in a week's time?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
just take current out, leave it.
Deal
Yes.
with heavy
Snowfall,
snowfall as required.
Yeah.
That way the foreman can, if he needs it, he gets.
So one way or the other, the road will get plowed.
resolve that we use contractors and casual workers to deal with the heavy snowfall as required. A mover, please. Councillor Burick. Seconded by
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Councillor
I'm a
McGregor.
hog when it comes to it.
Any further discussion? No, those in favor? I see some hands, thank you. We'll return to Benito Santa Day if we can. Council wants to bring a resolution to donate $200 to the Recreation Center for Santa Day. So in front of you now, you have that Town of Swan River invoice and the agreement, both the 2021 invoice and now the 2022 invoice as well. So I think we'll get into discussion of this. On December
Second,
20 something, yeah. It's the right page here. December 22nd and 23rd. Looks like it was the 23rd that we signed it. This agreement was signed with the Town of Swan River, between Swan River and Swan Valley West. So this provides for purchase services. And the agreement speaks to them being cemetery services, recreation services, landfill, handy van, and then a service fee of some sort. The term, upon written notice of not less than 3 months to the other party, either party may reserve the right to terminate the agreement or any part of it. Swan Valley West and the town of Swan River shall also provide updates on any changes. So there's no end date to this. It goes until we tell them to cancel it, or they tell us they are canceling it. And presumably we would never do that. We would come up with a new agreement, and the new agreement would just supersede this one. But there is an exit clause if either party wants out 3 months' notice, lets them out. So the agreement has some stuff about how the fee is calculated, and then the second part of it, the actual invoice, has the calculations for those fees. So that it's kind of a two-part thing where the words tell us this is how we'll figure it out, and the second document has the actual numbers of how we figure it out. So I think we will start with the pool, because that is going to be always here the highest topic of discussion. So for the Richardson Recreation and Wellness Center, in your packages, you'll see that for 2022, they're budgeting a revenue of $61,000 and expenses of $633,000. So the pool will cost $572,000 to operate in 2022. And I guess it has, because 2022 is almost over. And so the way it's figured out is by users of the pool. And what's indicated here in the invoice is that the town of Swan River had 27 people use the pool. And those aren't, it's not always a full person, there's part equivalent people. So swimming lessons, I think in here provides for a third of a person. If someone's registered for swimming lessons, that's a third. So 3 people registered for swimming lessons shows up as 1 person as a user of the pool. Swan Valley West had 14 people use the pool. Minnetonka's Bozeman had 10 people use the pool. And so that's divided out by percentage, so we would pay 27.2% of the cost, which means they have invoiced us for the first half of the year for half of $155,474.17 as our share of the pool. And it's their intention to invoice the full amount. They've only invoiced half yet because they invoice every 3 months. And we're somewhat behind on paying them. We haven't paid them anything yet this year. So I can try and sell this as a good thing. I'll give it my best shot. Which I think if you know me, I probably have some pretty large concerns about that. But I'll sit in this chair and I'll try and sell you on why we should do this. The agreement provides that the initial invoice is based on last year's usage. And then there's an adjustment fee after we know what actually happened this year. So the numbers we're seeing here of a total of 50 people using the pool in the entire year, 50 people in an entire year, is based on a year where the pool was closed for a lot of the time, and there were COVID issues and there were maintenance issues, and there wasn't a particularly high usage of the pool. We don't have new numbers for what's happened this year, but the pool has been open. There have been people using it. Presumably there will be an adjustment to this amount at some point to show a different number of users, because I find it hard to believe there would only be 50 users of the pool this year. So these numbers are probably out of whack. If you think of this another way, if we found someone from the town of Swan River that had a Swan River address and sent them down there to buy an annual pool pass based on these numbers, every person we did that with would save us $10,000 of contribution to the pool, which is how strange these numbers are because of such low usage last year. And the inverse is true. Every one of the 14 people from Swan Valley West that used the pool cost us a little more than $10,000 for them to go swimming. And I know those are ludicrous numbers. I totally get that. That's why we're having this discussion. We don't know what those numbers will be. We don't know, because ultimately it's still based on the percentages. If 27% of the people using the pool are from Swan Valley West this year, our bill remains $155,000. If by chance a lot of Swan Valley West people signed up to the pool this year, and now we have 50% of the people using the pool, our bill would be $300,000. And that's provided for in this agreement. So stepping back from what I know will be very strong feelings about that, The agreement is signed and in force. And they're billing us for time that has gone by that agreement was in force. I know Councillor Blosha wants to speak on this for a while, and I think she'll probably walk us through the invoice for last year that she's provided us and give us some context on that for what it cost last year, which was a lot less, and probably kick off the discussion of what we should do here tonight. So Councillor Blosha, if you'd like to go ahead.
Well, I wasn't on the Shared Services Committee, so I did speak to them to make sure I was on the right track. They were waiting for more finalized numbers so that council would come to an agreement on these numbers. As you can see, they're double from what they were the previous year. In the end total, they're double.
And we should just mention for the public that can't see
Yeah,
our
I gave you
paperwork here.
21, it looks like this.
Yeah. Also,
okay.
I just
There it
wanna,
is.
Okay,
just because we got a lot of people watching on video, the total invoice right now for 2022 is $420,000 from the town of Swan River, and the 2021 invoice was a total of $244,000.
Yeah. And also there was a back payment of a mistake that was made of almost $12,000, so you could take another 12 off that one. And so it did come back at the final meeting of council, and it was left for this council to decide. So I would encourage you to maybe have the Shared Service Committee to have a meeting with the before you decide what you want to pay.
Other people with questions or comments?
oh boy.
Councillor Zbirun.
Well, like Councillor Kushniryk would say that, you know, we need to have a town meeting, we need to have a town meeting. Well, we had a town meeting on this rink, or on this pool.
Yes?
And at the town meeting, about, I'd say 95% of the people there said, we can't afford this pool. We cannot afford this pool. So what did they tell us? We'll go it alone. We don't need you. Well, what's this? Go it alone then. What do you think? I mean, if we're gonna do what the people say, go it alone then.
That was on the capital cost.
Cost of it, yeah, but I mean, if you build it, I mean, you gotta take the responsibility of it. Go it alone. They wanted to do it. 50 people for $17 million? How much is that a person? Quite a bit, right?
A lot.
Yeah. Like, why are we even discussing this? Man, that's I'm sorry.
I'll add to Councillor Zbirun's comments. When the pool was being discussed and those meetings were being held, a feasibility study was done, and the feasibility study indicated there would be substantial yearly losses.
Yes.
And the losses we're seeing now are in line with the feasibility study that was done at the
Yeah.
time. So it's not necessarily a surprise the pool is losing this much money. It was foreseen before it was built that there would be losses like this.
And we tried to tell them that, but they thought that they could afford it. Well, now they need help. But do we help them?
We have been all along.
Yeah,
Since.
but
I mean,
why?
It started at $100,000 a year.
It just keeps going like this and like this.
So previous agreements for shared services, pre-COVID, because COVID changed a lot of things and the pool was closed for so much. So if we exempt the COVID times and look prior to that, Swan Valley West had entered into a shared services agreement where we had basically the same split for how it was determined how the users were and what we would pay, but there was a second clause to it that we would never pay more than $100,000. And so each year our share was more than $100,000, but because of that clause in the agreement, it was hard limited to $100,000. So the 155 was within the ballpark of that old agreement of what we should have paid each year, but because of the clause, we only ever paid the 100. When COVID came along and the pool was closed for quite a lot of time, there wasn't nearly as much staff expense. And when you look at the budget, most of the expense of the pool is lifeguards and administration. And so Swan Valley West paid substantially less for a couple of years because of the amount of closure. And the town had agreed to that. The trouble I see is that we have a signed agreement, and that's what we have to work on. Councillor Neely.
Yeah, that was a 4-year deal. When they started, we'd made a deal it'd be $100,000.
And it did go on a little
Maximum
further
for
than that.
4 years.
Yeah. And when if there was a year 5 and a year 6 added in time.
It might have been,
Okay, can we use this same formula for, say, the ski hill?
So specifically, yes, the town of Swan River, I've met with them on these numbers and asked some questions. And they indicated that for several years, about 4 years, they have been asking Swan Valley West to provide usage numbers and a bill for facilities in Swan Valley West that town people use, that we pay for.
Yeah.
The most notable would be the Recreation Center in Benito. That's
Yeah.
one of our biggest expenses. For the last 4 years, Swan Valley West has declined to do that. So the town has not paid anything back to us. They're still willing to do that. We would have to enter into an agreement with them, obviously. We would
Yeah.
come up with a formula for how to do it. But to date, the Council of Swan Valley West has not wanted to charge the town for anything. But they are willing to pay.
Yeah.
They indicate.
But is it gonna work that, okay, we hand them a bill and they just raise theirs up higher, or how does that?
This is probably one of the prickliest discussions we ever have at council, because we try to be good neighbors with the town. You know, we're both, you know, we're sitting in the town right now. We're very connected, we surround them. Certainly the town has done some things in the past that are highly questionable. And at times Swan Valley West has likely done some things that are somewhat questionable too. We haven't always been good neighbors to each other. And it's hardest times to be good neighbors is when we talk about sharing services and how we pay for them. Because there's two very different mindsets. Our mindset in a more rural area is very different than the mindset in an urban area like the town. And that leads us sometimes to get into, frankly, some heated discussions over it.
So if it was reversed, and we were sitting with the pool, how much money do you think the town would be giving us? Hard to say, eh?
It would be hard to make an argument that they would be paying us that much money if we had a
Exactly.
pool. And maybe they would. There's a possibility, but it would be hard to imagine.
Yeah.
Councillor Blosha.
So would it be agreeable that the shared service committee sits down with them and has a discussion over this before we pass a judgment to pay the bill?
Well, council could certainly make that decision, but I will say this, and I'll say this as gently as I can. The previous council of Swan Valley West made this decision for us. They signed this document. They either read it and knew what they were signing and agreed to this on our behalf, or they didn't read it and signed it anyway. I don't know, and I don't particularly care which way it went. The reality is, there's a signed agreement that says we owe them this money. And we could certainly go down the path of saying we don't like paying this bill. I personally don't like paying this bill. I don't think anyone around this table is going to make an argument they like paying this bill. But we have a signed agreement with our neighbor that says we owe them this money. I don't know how we could say to them, oh, well, so what? We signed an agreement, we said we'd pay it, but we just don't feel like it anymore. We could give notice to end the agreement if we wanted to. I don't think it's advisable, but we could do that. But the reality is we're at the end of November. Even if we terminated the agreement now, it would run until the end of February. So all of 2022 would still be payable plus 2 months of 2023. And I don't think, to Councillor Blosha's point, absolutely. I've requested already in writing a shared services meeting with the town of Swan River. We're waiting for dates to be set because we have much to talk about.
So how do they figure out that 14 people came out of the rural to use their, do they put your name and your address down when you sign in, or I don't know, I've never been.
Only in certain conditions. So what the agreement provides for the recreational services fees, the town shall portion the yearly recreation costs of aquatic services based on the previous year's participant origin data collected, and it's only from these things: swimming lessons, rentals, and memberships. So if you go to the pool for the $5 swim or whatever it is, you're not counted in those numbers. The only thing counted in these numbers are people that go to swimming lessons, that rent the pool privately, the whole pool,
Okay,
or that have a yearly membership at the pool.
okay.
So, say for example, 1,000 people went to swim but paid the $2 for Toonie swim.
Okay.
None of those are counted in these numbers, and it doesn't matter where they came from.
Okay.
It only matters if they bought the yearly pass.
Yeah, that's better, because I'm looking at 50 people, I mean, ooh.
Yeah,
But that's where, not that I know the numbers, but that to me is where they skew the numbers, because tons of kids are gonna go to those local daily swims.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking like too, like when I drove the school bus, I mean, I took a load of kids to, you know, 20 kids or whatever in my bus, so I'm thinking, well, there's half the number here I just took there, you know?
but specifically this, what the school division does with the pool does not count to this usage at all.
Oh, is that right?
So that doesn't, like, where the weighting comes in for who pays what of the losses, none of the school division use is in that.
Oh, it's not considered as a private rental of the,
That's a separate
It's a
agreement. from what I
freebie for the
understand.
schools.
But it's not entirely
They
free.
pay in money for it.
A little bit, not much.
Without seeing the numbers, I think if they included the casual use like that, it would really put the onus back on Swan River to be paying for the pool. Because you took in 20 kids, but there's, well, I don't know, what, 5 schools here, 6 schools?
Yeah.
That also
Use
took in
it.
way more kids than
Yeah,
that.
yes, yeah.
4 kids went public swimming from our area, 20 went from Swan.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think it would really bring the numbers back into check of where they,
We better do something about our ski hill or whatever, you know, and
Oh, definitely.
and send the bill to them. Maybe we can recoup some money back or
And
something.
they're certainly willing to pay it. They asked the question when I met with them,
But they
why
haven't seen the
don't
bill
you
yet."
bill us?
Yeah, but they haven't seen the bill yet.
Well, this is true. This is true.
if I'm understanding right now, they want half. If you look at these numbers, the only 2 to really go up are the arena and the aquatic, they really spike. But they're asking half. So by the time we get our next invoice, we should have proper numbers that they're billing us on, no?
So this was revised because of some changes. So this is from January to the end of June. We should have received the 3rd invoice already. They haven't written the 3rd invoice because we haven't paid the first 2.
Sorry, yeah, I'm thinking of it in 2 installments.
So, there's 2 more. We should really be paying 3/4 of the bill tonight. But they haven't invoiced us the other part because we never paid the first 2 parts, and they said, what was the point of invoicing it when we weren't paying the bill? But, to be clear, they do want it paid. They're quite clear on wanting it paid. And I don't know if you follow the council discussion over there and watch their meetings, but, certainly their council has been expressing concern in their meetings over the fact that we're so far behind. There used to be, in shared and purchase services, we used to only pay once a year at the end of the year. And then it didn't always get paid then either. Sometimes it would get paid quite substantially after that, which the town was having concerns with. So the new agreement provided for 4 payments a year so that it would be a more sustainable cash flow, both for us, you know, we're paying it, but for them too, because they're obviously spending all this money along the way and going into their line of credit or whatever, because we haven't paid our share back. So they were hoping that we would actually honor the part of the agreement.
So how many years are we in on this?
This agreement never ends.
We have to give 3 months notice.
Yeah,
in order to-
3 months notice. Ideally, we would start negotiating with them. There may still be meeting dates available in December we're looking for. We would start negotiations on a new agreement. I'd like us to not just haul off and cancel the agreement, because I want us to work with Swan River. I want a new agreement. I think everybody here probably wants a new agreement. I think that's pretty clear. But I don't want to cancel this and say, oh, we've canceled that and now negotiate. I don't want to do that. I just want us to get together and say, hey, this is what's not working for us. Let's fix these things up. And have us agree like adults and say, this is what's going to work. And sign a new agreement. And you know, maybe we don't have to wait the 3 months. Like maybe they're willing to have a new agreement come the 1st of January, the 1st of February. We don't know. But let's have that conversation with them. More to the point of tonight though,
I just have a question
Go
about
ahead.
the arena here. Went up like, what is that figure on the arena,
33,
33?
I think, like 2.5 times or so.
The old one is 33,000, Carrie?
Yeah, 33,732, yeah.
And then for this year, it's 81. There must have been something wrong, there wasn't
Like
an
you said, it was
operation, eh?
COVID.
Wasn't in operation, so they didn't have the.
Yeah, it was a lot cheaper because there wasn't as much expense.
Yeah, it's a lot cheaper, they
So-
locked the door.
Yeah.
So speaking of the arena, are they building a new one?
They haven't yet made a decision on that. They did do a survey. The survey came back essentially to repair the old one. There was a lot of people wanting a new one too, but I think it was just slightly more for repair. I did attend those presentations to see what was going on there because I wanted to understand it. And they have some troubles there.
Yeah, the
They've
board,
got some
the
big
boards
troubles.
and the floor in the arena, I heard it.
So our share of that is,
There is no capital in this agreement. So should they build a new rink under this current agreement, our share is 0.
okay.
But I wouldn't assume that we'd get
It
away
would
with
stay that way, yeah?
I think they would, like if they were to build a new arena, they would come here and they would ask us to
They
help
would
with
ask.
that. But this agreement, we're not tied into paying for it if they build a new arena right now.
Yeah. So maybe thinking that if they are thinking of building a new agreement, maybe they will be wanting to talk to, do something about this, eh?
And, you know, there's a bigger picture here, right? Because if you look at everything to do with fire halls or fire departments, all of this led to all of that. You know, if you go
Yeah.
back in time far enough, Swan River and what was the RM of Swan River at the time jointly owned a fire department. And it was a sacred thing that you never involved in negotiations, you never fought over. Fire was seen, as it should be, as a life-saving
Yes.
thing that we don't mess with. And it just happened. And then over time that changed. And it, you know, became, at the time of the pool, and even Mayor Anderson at the time cut off fire service to the RM of Swan River for a while, and that was many, many years ago. You know, for 4 days or whatever, there was no fire truck responding if there was a fire in the RM of Swan River. It was crazy times. We need to get back to fire being that sacred cow, because Swan Valley West has
I
felt a
don't think
lot of
you, I don't
pressure.
think you ever will, Bill, because they got it now that they can hold it over us, and if we want it, we pay.
I think you'll hear Thursday night that isn't the case.
Okay,
Um,
I hope
From
you're right.
speaking to the new council, I believe, and again, it's not written down,
Yeah,
my belief is that there has been a marked change
Okay.
with the new council, that we will be making a fire agreement that excludes fire from this silliness of fighting over the pool. So that we deal with fire,
okay,
and we never use fire as a leverage point for what we pay for the pool, which is where we need to be.
yeah,
Because we can't play with people's lives
yeah,
as we talk about if they go swimming or not. It just doesn't make sense.
yeah.
I believe the indications I've had from the new council is that that is likely what we're going to do. We will never again use fire, either side, as beating the other one with it. And that would be, to my way of thinking, a good thing.
Okay.
We'd never do that. Unfortunately, my recommendation is we pay the bill, because we have a signed agreement and we owe them the money. And I know that's not what you guys want to hear, but,
It's an agreement, and what do you do? You can't.
and there may well be like, you know, far be it for me, I've apologized many times for being blunt, but if you have someone in the town that wanted a swimming pass, there's still a month left. Maybe you would like to buy them one and gift it to them. Because every swimming pass that's sold to someone in Swan River right now might save us $10,000 on this bill.
So,
It's the way the math is.
so as council, we should just write a check.
Gifts.
And everybody here gets a swimming pass, even if we use it or not, and then that'll drop it by,
77,000.
yeah.
Well, the trouble is, we all live in Swan Valley West, so that would actually cost us $77,000.
We gotta go find some Swan River rights.
And we're joking a little bit there, but that is how the agreement's written. So, you know, if tomorrow morning, someone from Swan River goes and buys an annual pass to the pool, we save $10,000 because they did that, based on the numbers we're seeing tonight. which is probably why we should have a new agreement.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
That arena could end up being
It could be a
$5 million,
substantial.
$6 million repair job alone. A new one, you're likely looking at 12 to 15 million dollars.
The town on the arenas, they probably, I don't want to speak ill of our neighbor. Probably they should have done a couple things different when they did the initial repair that would have changed drastically what the next repair would cost. But I think they were kind of in the mood to just get it going and do something. But maybe there was a couple tweaks they could have done differently that unfortunately
At least the
it's done
roof,
already.
at least the roof is still good.
It only leaks when it rains?
So, I'll go out on a limb, I don't know how the vote will go, but, we do have a check tonight for this, so we need a decision. So I would like to bring a resolution forward on paying this. If we vote to pay it, the check is here tonight, we will do that as part of finances and send over $210,000. We may wish to all attend and have a signing ceremony, so we felt like we got something for it. But if we vote it down, that creates some legal issues for us, because we do have a signed agreement. And so should we choose not to pay the bill tonight, it would make for an interesting road. And interesting isn't always good, but I'll throw that out there. I'm not presuming to tell you how to vote, I just want to make sure that we're aware of the gravity of voting it down, is that we're essentially voting to not follow the signed agreement that is signed.
This fire portion, is that for service or is that just for call basis when it comes to find the fire?
No, it's right here on the back,
Yeah.
back of the first page. Go to the back of
Oh.
the first page, it's right there. It's all
Oh,
broken
okay.
down for you.
So fire, and I can speak specifically to fire, when this agreement was done, they actually looked at 3 different ways of paying for fire protection. And the agreement with the town of Swan River at that time, between Swan Valley West and Swan River, was that they would pick the cheapest way for Swan Valley West. So they looked at allocating it based on the number of calls, or based on the number of hours at the calls. The other one was by assessment. At one time, fire protection, this agreement provided that the assessment split the bill. So what was found to be the cheapest was the hours spent on calls. So what you see here is the town of Swan River, 869 hours, about 48% of the fire protection is theirs. 564 hours for Swan Valley West, 31%. Minnetonka's Bozeman, 342 hours, roughly 19%. And then Mountain, 43 hours, at 2.4%. I assume the Mountain would probably have been a call to a highway up there or something. So that was seen as the way to make it so the bill to Swan Valley West was the lowest possible. If it was assessment, our bill would have been closer to 50%, possibly a little more than 50%. And by, I don't know the numbers for just the raw calls, 5 calls, I don't know what it was, but this was the cheapest.
Well, our total assessment's 31% higher than the town.
It has been rising quickly. At one time, we were almost equal, but not anymore. Do you have a resolution written for this?
So that's what it's costing us, is this 109,000?
Yep.
That we agreed to pay the agreement.
So how much is that an hour?
The September
$500 an
20th
hour?
invoice for purchase services.
Oh. So that's about 5 bucks?
No, it would be,
$2,000, $2,000 an hour? No, $200.
Oh, yeah. You're asking the cost per hour?
Yeah.
6.
Be about $180 an hour? No, more than that.
$195 an hour.
95?
The reason that I think is so high is Swan River currently has a full-time fire chief. And so the firefighter wages there are almost $142,000, but it's including a full-time chief. And the way we're structured right now is we're purchasing services. So we don't necessarily have a seat at the table. We have been invited to come and be part of those discussions of how to run the fire department and really how to run all of these things. We've declined the invitation the last couple of years, but the invitation will come again. I think it already has. If we want to have someone with the town while they talk about these things. And all of the rest of this, probably, I would like to see us always have someone there. I think a new agreement, we would be looking for input in how these services are run, so that it's not just, here's the bill, pay it. Because certainly we may have some input on how you run the fire department. If we're going to purchase fire service from them, or if we're going to purchase landfill service from them, perhaps we should be at the table talking about our concerns while these budgets are being made, and talking about our concerns, how the services are run, and maybe we're looking to save some money. We might have some ideas of how we could do something cheaper. You know, certainly there's times in some of these things where we have equipment and we have men and we have supplies that we could do some of the work for these things cheaper than the town is doing it. So we could save us both some money by having our grader go and do something. You know, there's lots of opportunity if we can get to the part where we can converse rather than just.
So this 109, we pay that and we're done. We don't pay them no more for the year?
As it sits right now, it's 109. There's a good chance that's going to come down in the adjustment. These hours include the year that there was a rather large fire in Swan Valley West. So all of this agreement provides that they use the last year's numbers for invoicing purposes, but then if there's a change, there's either a credit given back or a final bill, and I would suspect there would be a credit on the fire.
Do we see any money back? Do we recoup any money from fire calls? As in, it used to be the way that if the fire department, say, came up to my place, I had a fire. Okay, they would turn around, they would hand the bill to Pat, and Pat would turn around and give it to me. I'd take it, run it down to Scott Snyder's. He'd give me a check, and I'd come back and give it to Pat, and it's all paid for.
So there was a change in Manitoba many years ago. I can't speak to how many, but more than 10. Fire services never paid for themselves based on what they invoiced. So there was always a taxation component to it. And a ruling came along that you must not double tax. So it was seen that if you had a fire, we were also charging you for fire here, but then we were giving you an invoice for the full amount. And that wasn't fair. So since that time, fire services in Manitoba are not invoiced, with the exception of Manitoba Public Insurance. So if any fire department goes to a call involving a vehicle, Manitoba Public Insurance receives an invoice, and that's shown in here. There's some income, the fire call charges of $15,000. That's money from MPI. But otherwise, no bill is ever given to someone in Manitoba. And even MPI, if you have an accident in Swan River, because you're from Swan Valley West, that is billable to MPI. But if you have an accident in Swan Valley West, and you're from Swan Valley West, that is not billable. Because you're a resident of Swan Valley West, we have to pay for your fire protection. So only visitors to our municipality or visitors to the town are billable to MPI.
Did you need a vote in here or just that?
That's probably fine. So I have a resolution. We'll see if there's a mover and seconder. Resolve that we approve the September invoice to the town of Swan River for the 2022 purchase services. We could write in the amount if you folks want that to appear in our minutes, or we could not. It's up to you.
Write it in.
Okay.
Please.
For
Please.
$210,072. Last night I was writing resolutions and staff reports, they can barely read any of them. So tonight we're having the CAO write them, and I think it'll turn out better.
I was gonna make the comment, you'd make a good doctor, but
I I gotta make you a deal. Not kidding.
Alright, so I'll reread this. Resolved that we approve the September invoice to the town of Swan River for the 2022 purchase services for the amount of $210,072. Is there someone that would like to move the resolution? Councillor Burick. Is there a person that would like to second the resolution? Councillor Kushniryk. Any further discussion on the matter? This would be the time if anyone's wanting a recorded vote, they would say so. You would like a recorded vote? Just thought I'd throw that out there in case you wanted. Give me a moment and I'll prepare this. Okay, so I've prepared the resolution for a recorded vote. When we do that, please keep your hands in the air long enough I can get the votes down. Those in favor? So I see a yes there, I see a yes there, yes there, yes there, yes here. Those opposed? I have 7 votes, so I'm not going to ask for abstained because we don't have anyone left. So that is carried 5-2.
Do you want to do that?
Yes, please. So we're going back to the Benito Santa Days. Resolved that we donate the sum of $200 to the Benito District Recreation Center for the Benito Santa Days community event. Councillor Zbirun, would you like to move that?
Yes, please.
Who would like to second it? Councillor McGregor. Any discussion on the resolution? I think we wish them well at their event. If council has an opportunity to attend, it's the 17th.
Yes.
What time?
I'm
What's
sure
the time?
everyone would love to see you.
It's, actually, there's a trade sale, there's a craft
and
sale,
trade
it starts at 10 till 3, and then the Santa Day starts, I think, at
2 to 5?
2 to 5, yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
So if you can attend, I know
Yeah.
the public would love to see you up there. Those in favor? That's carried. We are moving out of section 7, we're done that, we're moving to section 8, financial items. So, we'll begin. You'll notice this might run a little differently than you're used to if you've been here before, so forgive me for that, but. This from my file. So I have all of the checks here tonight, and I have all of the supporting invoices for the checks. And we do have a checklist as well. Because so many of us are new, and because of really just what these things are, I was going to very quickly go through some of them. I'm not going to belabor the points, so, but just flip through some of them so that we can keep the public a little more informed of what we're doing. So in your packages, you have the first checklist looks like this. It's 2 pages of paper, it's just a list of places and amounts, and it's double-sided. You'll notice that that begins with a bunch of spoiled checks. There was a fairly substantive printing error on the check run of November 15th, which resulted in a bunch of checks having to be voided. Those are all indicated on the list because we make sure that every check number is accounted for. So that's why they're all showing here tonight. After that, we get into the checks. Is there any specific ones that people want to know more about? You'll see on this list there's a bunch of individuals' names. Those are almost exclusively election employees that worked the recent election. So there's a bunch of checks here for them.
I'd like to know 18, 310, and 322. They're both decent amounts and just what we use them for. I don't know what they are.
So I'm going to just flip to get to them, and if there's anything else of interest along the way, I'm going to stop. AMM Trading Company is there tonight for $7,900. All of that is diesel fuel. We use the AMM Trading Company, but I have the invoices here that show where it's from. So it comes from various Dokes bulk fuels. typically bills through AMM for us, and we get some commission on that. 310 was the first one, right? We'll get there. Some of these checks, because these were prepared after our last meeting, we have a bylaw in place where normal monthly payments can be signed before they come to council. Telephone bills, hydro bills, things that occur every single month. So some of these checks, maybe 15 of them, were signed and sent out already. And so the stubs are here, but the checks are gone to avoid the finance charges. There's a question before the meeting on Dale Rose. I have that check here. The question was what it was for. It's mixed. So $300 of it is election expenses, and the rest of it's bylaw inspector reports that we approved previously.
Okay.
There was also a question came up about employee health benefits. That was at the table a few weeks ago. There's a check here, and it's one of the ones that went already to pay the employee health benefits. There'd been some question about if we were paying benefits. Those are paid, and the check was already mailed. Check 18307. I wanted to make sure you're aware of that one. That is an invoice for $268.80 from Prairie Security Services to monitor the new fire station. And that begins at the end of October is the dating on that. So there's an alarm system installed there, and that check is here to pay tonight. Typically how this works for the new folks, if you object to one of these checks, we would talk about it and decide if we're really going to pay the bill. Much like the town thing, many of these things we can't not pay for, but we can certainly discuss it. Receiver general check is in here. It's one that was sent. There used to be issues at times of these being late. If this check is late, it's a $2,500 penalty. So it was sent already to avoid that penalty. 18310 is the one you're asking about. That's for Reliant Action. So it consists of 4 invoices. There are 6 Bio4N Class A foam 5-gallon pails. That was shipped to Prairie Security Services and billed to the Municipality of Swan Valley West. The PO number is Stan Anderson. So that would be foam for a fire truck. The next invoice provides for basket stretch, or what's this cover for the basket stretcher for a fire truck. So it keeps it from getting dirty when it's on the outside of the truck. Looks like 5 Survivor LED, some sort of light devices. The next invoice is for almost $3,000. It's for fire armor, gloves, different sizes of gloves, spanner wrench, and several rescue tools. Hex armor, so I assume that's some sort of, I can't tell you exactly what it is. The last invoice is actually a credit. It's for the return of a 4-inch female coupler, and we received a credit of $519. So the check total is $4,214.32. What was the next one you wanted?
322.
There's also a Seahawk check here you should be aware of. There's another one in the second batch. It is for $4,200. So these particular invoices are for collapsible traffic cones, a stop and slow paddle, adjustable poles for those, tool mounts, various adapters, a winch cover, and that totaled to $4,200. There was a question came up before the meeting about the Cheetahs Gymnastic Club check. It's for $1,250. This particular check is based on a partnership agreement between Swan Valley West and the Gymnastics Club and the Community Foundation of Swan Valley. So the Gymnastics Club applied to the Community Foundation for funding. It was granted, but the Gymnastics Club is not a registered charity, so the Community Foundation cannot donate directly to them. They can only donate to another registered charity. At current, Swan Valley West is a registered charity. So by entering into a partnership agreement like this, it allows the money to go to the gymnastics club. There has been some discussion over time. The town of Swan River currently refuses to enter into these agreements. The town says that they have received advice that an agreement like this violates their charitable registration with the Canada Revenue Agency. It has been discussed at this table in the past. The feeling of council at the time was that it did not violate it, but no outside advice was sought. The town did seek advice from an accountant who said that they felt it violated it. Outside of this, I was contacted by the Thunderhill Ski Club. They were asking if we would continue to take donations on their behalf. I had no direction of council, so I gave a very politically correct answer, which was, as long as they comply with the CRA rules, we'd be happy to. And I thought that was perhaps the best way to answer the question. And there has been, if you look at our financials, there's been a substantial amount of money has run through Swan Valley West for the new ski chalet and the work they've been doing there. And there have been questions about naming rights, because some of those donations were issued charitable tax receipts for the full amount, but then naming rights were assigned as a result of that. And if you read the CRA rules, it would be hard to see how that was in compliance. So at some point as a council, we should revisit that and just get our heads on straight on what the answer is, so we have a firm answer, and we might want to seek some advice. For the Cheetah's gymnastics check, I have a copy of the charitable tax receipt that was given to the community foundation for the money, and then I have the check to write it across to Cheetah's Gymnastics. Remind me of the number.
13 or 322.
We're almost there. That was 322. So this is to Way to Go Consulting. This is for a utility rate study. Specifically, this is preparation of utility rate study for Benito Utility, preparation of bylaw, PUB minimum filing requirements and schedules. It's an interim invoice, flat rate quoted at $4,200, and this is 75% of it. An additional fee to prepare deficit approval forms, rate rider, flat rate quote, $500. The invoice is dated May 31st, 2022. It has been unpaid for some time, and the vendor is looking for payment. This relates directly to the water rate increase in Benito. This is the billing for the paperwork that was submitted to have the water rates increase 400%. Any other questions about that? No. Workers' compensation is here, by the way, and it was signed, but it wasn't sent by accident, so we did incur a $12 late penalty for workers' compensation. That is all the checks in the first batch. Is there any other questions about those ones? Assuming we approve them tonight, they will be signed yet tonight before I leave, and they will start being dispersed tomorrow. There have been some questions about that. I did not feel comfortable signing them ahead of time. Typically in the past, they were signed before the meeting, but I had a hard time with that because I'm going to be here anyway. And either myself or Deputy Burick is always going to be here at a meeting. To me, it didn't make sense to sign them until we actually approved them, just to avoid a situation where a check went out if council had a really valid reason for holding it back and it was too late to do anything about it. That's why I did that. If anyone questions the thoughts on that. I have a resolution. Be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. General checks, this is the November 15th batch, number 18215 to 18325, in the amount of $80,304.16. Do we have a mover? Councillor Neely. A seconder, please. Councillor Zbirun. Any further discussion on the checks? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We will move to the second batch of checks. This is the November 30th batch. Normally we would only have one batch of checks appear, but because they could not be created in time for our last meeting, that's why we have two tonight. So in your package, you'll see you have a much different check printout this time. This time around, it shows you who the check is to, and it also shows you the accounts that are being charged, so it gives you some idea. I do have all of the checks and all of the invoices. There are a couple I wanted to make sure I mentioned. The most specific of those is the Seahawk check. Also of note for council, the check numbers, it was a rough day, let's put it that way. So the check numbers on your report do not currently match the check numbers that will be sent. That will be updated shortly, because the checks were in reverse order in the printer. So the checks printed exactly opposite from what we were thinking. The Seahawk check, let's start with this. Family Highway Service, this check 18,393 is the actual number of it. It's $474, so there's some history here. We normally pay these bills by credit card, but the credit card was being declined. So in order for our equipment in Benito to still have fuel, the folks extended us credit there, so this check is being written directly to them because of that, to pay for those things. Typically, we wouldn't write a check directly to them, it would be a credit card payment, so you would just see it as part of credit card. Councillor Zbirun.
Getting back to that credit card, did Bill actually have permission to use that credit card for his courses?
I can't speak exactly to that. I can tell you that there's a credit card issued in his name, and that there was another credit card issued in Reeve Galloway's name. Our council chose to cancel the Reeve Galloway credit card. We discussed whether or not I should have a credit card. I somewhat declined that because I wasn't comfortable. If I'm going to have a credit card for Swan Valley West, I'm going to keep it in my pocket. I'm not comfortable having a card with my name on it floating around for anyone to use. So the thought was that we would do the CAO instead. At the time of the course registration, I suspect the only credit card available was Mr. Whitecue's credit card, because we had voted to cancel Mr. Galloway's. And that's the only credit card we have here.
Yeah.
So whether it had been charged to the one card or the other, it probably wouldn't have made a difference over what happened. And there'll be people watching our video that don't know what we're talking about. There were some course registration fees for some courses taken by one of our employees that were charged to the credit card, and those fees put the credit card over its limit, which is what caused these declines on fuel.
Okay, so if Bill has this credit card, he knows how much limit is on it, right? He should, right?
I would expect he would.
So if he just spent a whole bunch of money on his courses and then he goes to use the card to pay for gas, and then all of a sudden he's shocked why this card isn't working, and then he comes here and tells us, you know, like somebody did something to his card, well, he should. I'm calling BS on his little story.
I hear you.
Okay.
I don't even know what the limit on the card is.
Yeah.
I suspect it's fairly low. I don't think it's very high limit.
Yeah.
I don't know, like the courses themselves, that was somewhat a surprise. We've discussed that somewhat in camera, so I'm not going to go into all the personnel details, but the surprise aspect of it may have led to what happened. But it wasn't ideal by any means. I think that's an agreeable statement. It wasn't ideal.
Okay.
There's an additional check here. All the election expenses in the first batch except for an additional $2,000 here. There was a council resolution immediately before the election to increase the pay to the election officer by $2,000. So that's why you're seeing one election check in the second batch. This one was also somewhat interesting to me. I don't know how you'll feel about it. It was charged to the election expense account. It's a cell phone booster for $537.59.
Where do you see that?
So it's check 18,386, and we have the, it's MERS is the place it's going to.
348 on the list.
Yeah, 340 on the list. So it's charged to election contract expenses. And there's indication here that it was for Lavender Hall. I am unable to tell you where it is now. If it's at Lavender Hall, if that was a donation to Lavender Hall, or if that has come back here to be used for other things. I just thought it was kind of notable that we bought a $500 cell phone booster as an election expense.
Maybe still in the hole.
It may be, and that may be council's will to provide a cell phone booth there, it was notable to me.
So when was it purchased?
It was purchased October 24th, 2 days before the election. Northview Service, there's a check here for $2,100. This relates to a fire truck in Benito. Immediately after the one fire call to that yard site in Alpine, there was a problem discovered with the truck. So this is the repair to this, the E450, the 2003 rescue unit. Fuel leak on top of engine, disassembled, found 2 leaks. One on fuel filter housing adapter, replaced leaking parts, reassembled. Also found exhaust pipe that was worn and leaking, replaced. Vehicle starts after sitting overnight. The issue was it was not starting because of the fuel leak. It took over half an hour to get it to go the next day after the fire, so it had to be repaired, but that's what that cost is. Recycling check here to OSS, that's often a topic of questions for people, so I thought we'd stop on it for a moment. So I have the invoice here, and it provides the fuel surcharge amounts and the actual charges. So for Benito landfill, there are 2 dumpsters there. We pay $74.90 a month for those, and currently an additional $15.35 for fuel surcharge. There's additionally dumpsters at the Swan River Golf and Country Club. That one's a little cheaper. There appears to be, I believe it looks like there's 1 dumpster. We empty it twice a month. Benito Health Center has one. Benito School, the Benito Town Shop. And now there's a thing called front end. Does anyone, Councillor Blosha, do you know what front end is for a location for a recycling dumpster? I don't recognize, I can't say what that is. We're charged for it. Rental on it and 2 empties of $75 a month plus fuel. Front end.
So in these ones here, and I don't know if Pat could answer this for me, something I've been asking a long time about, the front end obviously caught my eye, I don't know what that is. But these 4 are all being billed to the LUD of Benito? Because the account number is all the same.
And I do not believe the Benito School has a dumpster, I don't think they ever got a dumpster unless they got it at the very end. They never had one at the beginning.
All they had was some little blue things.
Yeah, we just
eh?
had the bins, so that's something to be looked into.
Yeah, getting
So-
charged for something we don't have.
I don't really know, the only thing I was gonna ask Pat, cause I asked it for a while. Those ones at the Benito shop weren't our dumpsters and we didn't request them, they're from the Swan River shop, and they just appeared in Benito.
Oh, okay.
So we had voted to stop that. So I just always asked who is paying for those, and it looks like we are paying, but nobody would give me that answer.
Okay.
So is that under our account? I would say so.
I'm afraid I haven't been here long enough to.
No,
No.
oh, just here, they all have the same account number
Oh,
matching, so I'm
yes.
assuming that it looks like it's being billed to us.
Yes,
believe
it would
it is.
appear that, yes.
No, because the Swan River Golf and Country Club would not be in that.
Yeah,
It's a
but
different account number.
Because the 4 he's talking about are.
Oh, he's talking about the 40.
They're all
105,
105s. We've got the front end of the Benito shop that,
Oh, is that what that is?
well, front end, I don't know what it is, and Benito shop is actually from the Swan River shop. The ones that we used to hide behind the shop. So they got delivered to Benito.
Does it get used lots? That one at the shop?
Yeah.
In Benito?
Yeah.
Yes.
They're getting
They've been
used now,
full
I think.
lots.
The one here did too, because it's always full.
Well, the one here was full of garbage.
Yeah, always.
The one in Benito is full of actual recycling.
We need to have a substantive discussion about recycling.
Yes.
That was a big item when I was going around talking to people.
Yes.
They wanted to know about recycling.
I think it would be good for us to put that on an agenda at a future meeting and have some talking about it. So I'm gonna move on to check 18379. This is Seahawk Services. This relates to fire protection, $14,148, and I thought it was important we talk about what's on this invoice, given the current political climate. So the 2014 Pierce Pumper, that's the fire truck that was purchased from the United States and brought to Canada. So the majority of this money is for it. The notes indicate that a pump governor did not respond well and needed to be repaired. Discharge and intakes were found to have thread that was not compatible with Canadian fire standards. So there's charges for a substantial number of adapters to adapt the fire truck from USA use to Canadian use. It was found that the pumps did not have any heat. The fire truck couldn't be used in winter. So there's a $5,000 charge for labor and parts to create a compartment around the pump. And then there's additional $700 roughly for a heater for that pump compartment. Some heater hose, some coolant and such. Was found that the tank fill was leaking on it. That had to be replaced. Left side hose reels not working. That was not repaired. That was just indicated that further diagnosis will be required, and then there's some time and charges for some other things there. So the total amount's $14,000. There was a $4,000 check ahead of time in the last batch. So those two checks are almost $20,000 of expenditures onto the Thunder West Fire Department that we hadn't seen yet. There is a check here. The next check is $18,378 for sand. This came up several times. Some councillors questioned me on this. It was initially reported that we had a supply of sand in Benito for sanding the streets. It was found that we actually did not have a supply of sand. So this $2,800 essentially is to purchase sand on a fairly emergent nature. So we had some sand to do sanding with. Given the time of year, I guess what I'm trying to say is there wasn't much choice. There's only so much sand available when you start looking for it when the ice is already on the road. Check for the co-op here for $9,000. So this is kind of the other side where we see the A&M Trading Company. We spend a lot of money obviously on diesel fuel with the co-op. There's some other things here too, but for the most part that's diesel fuel. There's a check to a lawyer here for $393. That is assigned to our labor account, so that's to do with union matters. We maintain 2 lawyer accounts. We have a general one for everything else and a specialized one for union, so we kind of track it that way. For interest's sake, our billing rate is $390 per hour there. I do have the check for the town of Swan River for $210,000. What of interest of that, we don't have it tonight because we've had some substantive computer issues. We will shortly see a budget printout of where we're at. And all of those numbers were assigned to their individual categories. So you'll be able to see the pool separately from the other things when you see that budget. So we made sure to do that so it's a little easier to see where that money's going. There is a check here for W.F. Snyder and Sons. It's for insurance, for our MPI registrations for a variety of vehicles that we own. Council historically has always used W.F. Snyder and Sons because they're located in our municipality. So I thought that was worth mentioning. So if you say, why do we do that? That's why. And there is a check, 18,371. It's for Westland Courier, and it shows that we're going to pay them $5,513. That is not correct. The actual invoice is $55.13.
I was gonna say for water?
So that
What did you say to us?
It's really 5513. It's got 2 extra zeros in it.
For samples, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's one sample. No, sorry, it wasn't even a sample. It was a crate of glass. It's glass to replace a windshield that we smashed. So I will say that in the last couple days, the 3 folks we have working in the office have done a phenomenal job. They have done amazing things. They have entered payables. Deborah has done so much work for us on the agendas and everything. Debbie stepped up and did all of the payables for us and got all of these check runs ready to go. So she did an amazing job, and I can't say enough about how great they've all worked together. And we only found 1 mistake. It's amazing for what they had to do in 2 days to have 1 mistake. So certainly we'll fix that up. I don't know how that impacts our resolution, because I believe our resolution is likely wrong.
Yep, we will
So we'll change something on it. Fix that up. Do you know what's changed now, or do you want us to come back to it?
Yeah, because I'll subtract the difference. We'll make a difference to that.
Okay, so I'll let you have that for a second. Any other questions about those checks while we're just fixing up the resolution there?
No, we looked at both batches, correct?
Yeah, that is the second batch now.
Thank you. Just the check numbers aren't on, yeah.
Yeah, and those will be updated. By the time that budget thing is printed, we'll have that fixed. The amounts are almost right, except
Yeah,
that
no,
one.
it's fine, I just.
Perhaps we'll go on for a second. Let's talk about payroll checks. So your packages, we have, this is what they look like this. Historically, council's been seeing for the last 2 years for payroll checks. I guess it comes across maybe as blunt again. There has been some concerns at the table previous, and those concerns are likely louder now, that council has not been doing a particularly good job of reviewing the money we're spending on payroll. As you can see, we don't know which employees are being paid or for what. We simply see the check number and the net pay amount. And sometimes those look fairly normal, but as you'll see on the November 15th run, there's a check for $5,000 for an employee. And as a councillor, I would certainly have some questions about what an employee did in 2 weeks to earn $5,000. So there's a similar check in the November 30th run that's $4,800. And again, you would think, gee, that's interesting. So what I've asked tonight is that in camera, we do have the actual pay stubs that relate to these, and we will have them available for council. And I think we'll likely do that on a going forward basis. So the public meeting, we're not going to disclose the names of the employees, obviously, and what they're being paid. But I think we will have available from now on in camera the supporting documents for these checks, so that we're able to review that and take a look. And I would certainly feel more comfortable if council had a little more input on some of those things, so you understood what was happening.
This is like the irregularity, these two particular checks that,
I can speak to the $4,800 one, in that you will be surprised. But unfortunately, I can't divulge it in the public meeting.
well, no, I
what it's for,
understand,
but
yeah. I'm just thinking,
So we're not gonna pass payroll checks till we come out?
if you want to delay it, we could.
No,
My
I understand.
recommendation is that we don't have a choice, we have to pass them.
People need to get paid.
Yes, so I'm comfortable passing them. I think the oversight we need to take isn't in saying, no, we're not paying this. We need to take some oversight in what happens next month. In what we're doing with why some of these amounts are happening. We should take some oversight in that. So I'm not suggesting we won't pay these bills.
these months likely wouldn't happen next month, though, is what I'm thinking.
At current, there's nothing stopping them from happening every month. And as a council, we should probably rein
Okay.
that in a little bit.
Yeah, it's just.
Gotta keep me in
Now
suspense.
we're curious.
Now you're gonna
No,
stay, right?
So I understand. Okay, I have a resolution. Be resolved that council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. General checks, this is the November 30th batch. Number 18,326 to 18,329, and number 18,330 to 18,345. And this is a corrected amount, $257,398.42. Do we have a mover, please? Councillor Zbirun. Seconder? Councillor Blosha. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Resolved that the council for the municipality of Swan Valley West does hereby approve the following payments. Payroll checks, November 15th batch. Number 4400 to 4416 in the amount of $25,726.13. A mover, please. Councillor Burick, seconded by Councillor Neely. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Resolved that the council for the municipality of Swan Valley West does hereby approve the following payments. Payroll checks, November 30th batch. Number 18330 to 18345 in the amount of $23,678.28. A mover, please. Moved by Councillor Kushniryk. Seconded by Councillor McGregor. Thank you. Discussion on these? Let me add this. Payroll, as you know, was a concern of council because of some things that have happened. Yesterday, payroll was completed in fairly good time. It went really smoothly. The one problem was that for some reasons we probably can't go into in the public meeting, there has been a severe inability to access our computer systems on Monday and again today. So it took until almost 11 a.m. on Monday to be able to access the payroll system, but we did gain access to that and were able to process payroll. Unfortunately, there are some tight timelines for direct deposits. Those have to be processed by noon today. The credit union was unable to effect a signing officer change until shortly after 1 o'clock today. And because of, to get into the program to do the direct deposits, we could use the old password and just, it wouldn't matter, we hadn't changed the signing authority. But the old password wasn't exactly available. And so because we couldn't get in using the old password, we had to create a new password, but we could not create a new password until the signing officer change was completed at 1 o'clock, which meant it was too late to log in to the system. So we have written the checks manually for payroll. The employees will be paid, but they are receiving paper checks for this one payroll run. The credit union has now been able to correct the problem of signing officers so that we can access the online system. And we could have sent the direct deposit this afternoon. The problem was it would not appear in the bank accounts until Thursday, and tomorrow's payday. So by issuing these checks, and that's why the check numbers are strange, by doing it this way, we ensure all the employees receive their pay on time. Those in favor? It's carried. We're moving to the discussion section of the agenda. This is section 9.1. It's 10 to 9. Are you folks okay with keeping on without a break? You're good? We'll get through this and we'll take a break. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I think somebody needs some fresh air.
How was it? I was thinking of that, Terry.
I didn't
All right.
even think about it for a minute.
You felt it, eh?
Okay, item 9.1, the Cheetahs Gymnastics Club. In your package, you'll see there's a letter dated November 21st. It indicates that they were able to purchase their own building in 2020, but in the spring of 2022, they had some roof issues. They've included quotes for the roof repair for $22,000 from one company, $73,000 from another company. What they're looking for here is any donations or contributions to the roof repair projects. Town of Swan River, Minnetonka's Bozeman, and Swan Valley West, they say gymnasts come from all of us. So they're wondering if we would be interested in making a donation. It's here as discussion. We don't have a proposed amount. It's for council to say what they want to do, if anything. Who would like to speak first?
I just wanted you to take note that they actually went with the cheaper quote, it says in their letter.
Okay, so it was only
Just
one
so
of
you
them.
know, the
Okay.
two quotes showed, but they went with the cheaper.
Only 50 grand
Not that that
difference.
changes anything. And I also can, where I work, I know that there's lots of children that enjoy this service, a lot. From our municipality and, yeah,
Now there's $1,250 already going there, but that's not from us.
that's not from
No,
us,
That was from the other, yeah, so it looks like we've already written the check, that wasn't our money.
sorry.
Go ahead.
We give $500 to 4-H yearly. I feel this is a kids club that's non-profit. My proposal would maybe be to give them $500 towards their.
Is this the first contribution, first time?
We don't know, there's no annual contribution, this would be a
This
one-time.
just for
But this is a
the,
one-time, but I'm just saying
Other
we
years,
do.
I'm just saying other
for
years.
the repair
It's-
job.
Yeah, to help them with their repairs. That's just my opinion.
Other comments on that? Proposal of $500?
It's a one-time versus annual on others.
Yeah.
Do we have room to give a little bit more? I don't know, I have no idea what
We gotta
council's
take it in
donation budget is.
Council, we're unfortunately, we don't have the budget's here yet. The last numbers I've seen are September 30th. We're running lean. We're not broke, but it feels like we're broke. Certainly if council wanted to donate $500, we can find $500 in the current year budget to make this happen. If you wanted to go to $1,000, we could find $1,000. It's not going to be the end of Swan Valley West, but we're certainly not flush with cash. We never are, because we only charge what we need to.
I'll move that we give them $500.
Okay, so we have a resolution being written here, and in 2 seconds we'll get your name on it, and we'll have it presented for $500.
Keep them out of trouble.
Resolve that we approve a donation to the Cheetah Gymnastics Club in the amount of $500, moved by Councillor Neely, seconded by Councillor Blosha. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? (9.2) This was discussed in camera. It's coming out of camera tonight as part of our commitment to be open and transparent. Public Utilities Board, as you know, has approved an ex-parte interim rate increase for Benito. The Utility Committee met and recommended we roll back that rate increase based on the numbers that did not look particularly proper for it. Last night, I provided you the materials for that. I don't see anybody with them. If you remember the sheet from last night, that was your overnight reading material. So the Public Utilities Board, I met with them last Friday, and they are, well, they're very serious people.
Really?
Not like us.
Not like us. They indicate that they have made an order, and we will live with their order until they change it, for however long that may be. Part of the issue here was that they made the order effective October 1st, and our billing cycle runs until October 31st. So the new rates took effect 2/3 of the way through a billing cycle, which creates some administrative nightmare to try to bill half of, well, 2/3 of a water cycle at one rate and 1/3 at the other rate. They claim that it's Swan Valley West's fault, that we did not properly tell them when we bill water. We may claim the opposite. In either case, the order is written for October 1st. They have extended the olive branch that if we pass a resolution requesting that order instead be effective November 1st, they will give us that 1 month change so that we can bill the 3 months at the old rate and not drive anyone crazy trying to bill things at this really strange quasi rate. It will take them a week to turn that around. It may cost us a $150 processing fee to do it. The other option is we can say to our administrative staff that they can just do it. If we were to say that, what they would likely do would be to use a calculator and come up with what the general rate would be, you know, and put this weird number in there. And we would want to include a letter with the water bills explaining what we did and why it was such a strange number. Either option is likely equally easy to do at this point. So it's kind of the will of council. We have held those water bills now for a full month because of this issue. The bills should have been issued November 1st. They have not yet been mailed. And that is causing concern for some people. So do we wish to pass a resolution, send a letter, send a resolution, wait a week for Public Utilities Board to get back to us, and then do it that way? Or do we wish to give direction to staff to bill at this strange 2/3, 1/3 thing this one time? That's question one, and we need an answer.
Better ask.
Do you know when and why the billing periods got changed? Because that creates a PSAB problem. Because you were supposed to bill in the year that it is, the service is provided, and the billing period was always quarterly, the last quarter being October, November, December. January was a new billing period. And so somewhere along the line, the billing period has got moved, which is why you're dealing with this problem.
The only G-rated answer I can give to that is the miracles of Swan Valley West.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm thinking that's probably the correct answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would be your preference? Do you wish to go through trying to move this order 1 month? Or do you wish to just figure out a number and put it in the bill and send it out?
Either way, it's a bad time to be sending out bills, isn't it?
We would obviously have to, we have to change the due date. And my recommendation would be we'd be very lenient with the due date. And not just, because I think we're required 22 days or whatever the strange number is, I think we'd go for a little more. Because we've had some issues there. Most people would pay it anyway, but just so that we don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah,
compounding problems.
it's not,
Sometimes
it's
it would
not
be
like
an
they
issue.
weren't expecting their water
No.
bill.
No.
They
So
will be
it's
shocked
not,
at the
but-
amount.
But the amount, yes,
Yes.
so give the due date a little, but, yeah.
Can you do it, the 2/3, 1/3?
Yeah, it could be done.
Okay, so the council would be agreeable to doing that and including an explanation letter with the bill, so we don't wait another week before we start the process?
I think so.
Because we're getting closer and closer to Christmas, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Otherwise it
that's,
might be another
the
month.
timing is
Yeah.
really bad,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, because when they say a week, what if that's 10 days? And
That's
what
right.
if it's a little more, a little more?
2
Yeah.
weeks.
Yes.
And give them
Okay.
ample time to pay.
So we don't have to do anything to do that except follow the order. So we'll just follow the order then and do that. And we will, with council's blessing, we'll include that explanation note in there and we'll be lenient with the due date.
Is everybody agreeable, say, a January 15th due date?
Yeah.
January 15th is fine for the group? Okay. Part 2, we asked to withdraw the rate application. The Public Utilities Board's sense of humor is not currently registering on the meter. They are upset. The question that was posed to me was, Reeve Gade, have you yet regretted running for Reeve? And I said, no, not yet. And he said, really? You are a sucker for punishment. So we had a very open discussion. The Public Utilities Board feels that we likely have no idea what we are doing. I may not disagree with them. They point out that we did file a rate application that they approved that said that next year we will spend $130,000 on someone to run a water treatment plant. And the year after that, we'll spend $134,000 on someone to run a water treatment plant. And by 2026, we'll be spending $147,000 a year running a water treatment plant. For reference, in 2016, it cost us $20,000 to run that plant. But they say we jumped through all of their hoops and filled out all of the paperwork correctly, and so they approved it. These numbers are simply not right. There is no way in this world it's going to cost that for 2 hours a day at a water treatment plant to check the plant. So I did some digging into these numbers for what happened. There were some irregularities with how capital expenses were charged to the utility. So a wastewater study was done. Instead of indicating that was capital expenses and maybe amortizing it over a few years for how long that sewer line would last, it was charged as immediate expenditure. So it was all expensed in the 1 year, which isn't typical. The Public Utilities Board says that as a council, we had the leeway to break that rule and to not properly allocate capital costs in our utility. And we did. And we should live with it. There is, for example, in 2022, an indication that we will lose at least $75,000 operating the water plant this year. the current budget numbers show that we're actually making money operating the water plant this year. They will not withdraw our application unless we amend these numbers, which is not an easy or quick process, because we went to an awful lot of work, and as you saw earlier, an awful lot of expense to make these numbers be what they currently say. They also note that 25% of the users of the utility complained about our proposed rate increase. They suggested that they have never, ever seen a utility with a rate increase with that amount of people complaining. And not simply about the increase, about the operation of the utility, about the billing, about practically everything. And we've taken a look previously at some of those complaints. They are of the opinion they will be holding a full public hearing into this matter. They further note, and we explored options. I said, what if we do this and what if we do that? Here's a bunch of things. I said, we're currently delinquent in responding to some of their demands. I said, what if we just don't respond? Will you just throw our application out? And they said, no, but we'll fine you. And the fine will start at $100 a day if we don't continue with the application as they're demanding we continue. Furthermore, if they hold a public hearing, and at public hearing it comes out that these numbers are not correct, they will likely fine us for having submitted false numbers. If it comes out these numbers are correct, we will maintain a water rate increase of 400% of Bonito, which means we will somehow have to find a way to spend $140,000 on 2 hours a day of checking a water plant, which would be...
Where do you take the course?
So does any of this money go into the reserves that is left over?
As we have presented to the Public Utilities Board, at the end of 2026, if we charge these rates, we will still be broke. I have looked at these numbers every way I can look at them, and Councillor Kushniryk has looked at them. We've looked at them for months. My opinion is that if we charge these rates at the end of 2026, we'll probably get fined for having a reserve of nearly $1 million, because they'll be upset that we overcharged, because it simply doesn't cost that kind of money to run that water plant.
But the thing is, the infrastructure hasn't been looked at in the village of Bonito. It's been looked at, but nothing has been done with it.
We didn't propose actually any infrastructure spending in this. You know, where it comes to where we should be proposing, and we should.
Yeah.
We should be proposing setting money aside for.
That's what I mean, like, can we
replacing water lines and
use
things.
any of this money for that, or this has to be all for the water plant?
What we've told them is that this is what it will cost to run the water plant.
Okay.
And so if that's not true, they want to fine us or have us amend it to be correct. We certainly should look at the transmission and distribution system. But the numbers, we've proposed that we'll spend $2,000 a year on it,
On what's that?
on the pipes,
Just repairs.
yes. So what the numbers we submitted is that, and it goes up, it gets almost to $3,000 because of inflation, but like what we're saying is that what we're going to spend on that is a couple $1,000s a year, but what we're going to spend on actually treating the water is 140, almost 150,000 by the end of it.
I think it should have been the other way around.
Maybe it should have been for capital replacement
You know.
costs or something, eh?
It's,
Not operation of the plant.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, at a public hearing, 6 of you will look at me and think that I'm going to somehow stand there in front of the Public Utilities Board and argue that this is correct. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. So we should look at doing some revisions, substantive revisions to this application. we will be on the hook for all of the costs of that public hearing, which will not be cheap necessarily, because of the number of people that complained about this application, because there was no consultation done with the public prior to the application's filing, because of the sizable increases, and quite frankly, because of the number of people that pointed out these numbers are bunk. There's people pointing out in those filings that this doesn't make sense. Had we done those things, we wouldn't have to pay for a public hearing now. The beginning of the problem started in roughly 2018, some of it in 2017. I'm not here to spend a bunch of time pointing fingers, but that's when the trouble started. And the trouble is substantial. It appears that we likely, and we're going to get to a forensic audit recommendation here shortly, there's likely substantive accounting irregularities in some of these numbers, in that things were charged to the utility that were never actually utility expenses. It appears there's likely at least one employee settlement for a non-utility related matter was charged here, among other things. The capital expense issues, because of how they were presented, the numbers made it look like it was costing a lot more to run the utility than it really was. And so when the forecasting was done, it was kind of this takeoff of, where it should be costing this, we were claiming it was costing that, and so we took off from here and went, where really we should have taken off from here and went. And even in this particular year, council saw fit to say that we're going to spend $120,000 on upgrading of the water plant. It appears nothing was spent. The number was just put in, and that number was then used to say how much we were going to lose this year, to forecast what we would lose next year, and forecast the year after that. But none of the work was done, and even at utility committee, nobody has any idea what the expense was for. It was never discussed at utility committee. In fact, there was no utility committee meetings held. So the budget number got put in there by previous council without a recommendation from utility, without the utility operator knowing what we would spend that money on. It's a mess. It may require restating years of our audited financial statements. Unfortunately, that's not the first time we would have to do that. A couple of years ago, Swan Valley West was forced to restate its audited financial statements because of irregularities in accounting. So I wanted to discuss it tonight, so it's not a surprise, but there's much work to do, and the practical upshot is we can't stop charging those higher rates because we proved we had to charge them. And if we get caught for it being a lie and don't disclose it on our own, we'll be fined for it. So either we have to really get into this being true, and I'm sorry, it's not. It's just not true. Or we have to get to filing some revisions while we have the ability to file revisions to proper numbers. So you need to be aware of that. And we already passed a resolution here that we would rescind that application. That resolution is still in effect. To rescind it, we would have to do this work because we would have to prove these numbers are wrong. And we may find that it's easier to amend the application than to simply pull it back and send a new one. We may not have time to make an amended one because we're probably looking at only a month or two before we're going to be set for public hearing. A public hearing would likely be held in March or possibly April. And so if we didn't have revisions in before we were set down for public hearing, we would go to public hearing at these numbers and go down that path. I guess, what is the will of council is the question. Do you prefer that utility committee chase after fixing this? That's what we have on the books essentially, is that they will do what it takes to rescind it, which would mean going through all these numbers, and they would be halfway there to submitting the proper application that showed some pipe replacement costs and showed the proper cost for operating the plant, and probably would I'm guessing, when I look at the numbers, we have a 400% water increase right now, that we've applied for. Maybe a 50% water increase, maybe it would be 100% at top end, even with those capital expenditures in there.
That for like reserves?
Yeah, to build reserves. There's even issues here.
So
like-
you're thinking that it takes about $60,000 to run the water plant, not the 127?
I'm
I'm
thinking,
looking on year 2021.
if you think, if we do 2 hours a day, so if we call it 3, because 2 hours a day, our morning check takes longer. If we have to backwash in the morning, we could be at the
Yeah.
plant for up to an hour. But many mornings, we're only there 10 to 15 minutes. In the afternoon, we're only there 15 minutes again. So you could say that 2 hours pretty safely, because we'll backwash on Monday and we might backwash again on Friday. But then that extra time that we have built up would be when we turn a meter on, or we turn a meter off, or we do the meter reading for a couple hours every 3 months. 2 hours a day would be pretty average. We could call it 3. But if we stayed at the 2, 2 hours a day times by, it's less than $30 an hour we spend. So we're
Except on
60 bucks a
weekends
day.
when Bill has to drive.
Right, so we do spend a little more there, and we need to fix that,
Yeah.
obviously. And part of what the Public Utility Board has said is that the people will pay for our mismanagement. Because we didn't bother to have a second person with a water operator certificate, the people pay
Yeah.
for us not doing it right. And unfortunately, that's been the story here for a while, is that every time Swan Valley West doesn't do something right, the people just pay more, and water's no exception. I would think $50,000 a year would run the water system in Benito, plus we would look at $50,000 a year towards reserves. We'd be at around $100,000 a year, which surprisingly is what we used to be at back in the day. And we could grow that some for inflation,
Yeah.
but. Comments? Anybody want to take a stab at that? Or what's on the books now is that utility committee and administration will work on essentially finding out what the real numbers are, and as quickly as they can get to Public Utilities Board, asking for it to be withdrawn.
Do you know how we rate compared to other communities around, whether we go into Saskatchewan or Manitoba, South,
The
North?
new rates make us one of the most expensive utilities anywhere. The old rates probably went too low. I don't think there's any argument that there shouldn't be an increase. There needs to be an increase, just not to this size.
Yeah.
The last increase was effective January 1st, 2015. And you should be doing a water rate study every 4 years,
Yeah.
so.
What is in the reserves? Any idea?
We've been
I haven't
unable
had a
to
chance to look.
determine, we've been unable to determine that. It's, there have been substantial questions about the reserve funds for the utility. It was once reported there were substantial reserves, but then it was reported they were gone. But there was no explanation for the change. We went from there were reserves to now there are none. And so far as yet, there hasn't necessarily been, about a year ago, there was a resolution brought to council regarding those reserves to transfer the reserves out of the utility and into general revenue, which is illegal. It was passed by council though, and so they just proceeded down that path of the illegally draining the utility reserves. It was then rescinded. But we simply don't know if the money was ever put back or not.
We had a utility budget at one point. I've asked so many questions on this that have been refused to be answered, so I could go on all night about this for you. But when it comes to reserves, we had a budget. So say it was your 17 budget, and we budgeted to spend $40,000 from reserves on the next budget. You wouldn't budget reserve money if you didn't have it, right? It never got applied. There's where our deficit started accumulating. Then when I've asked for copies to show me, where is this? It's refused. Nobody would give me any of this information. Utility meetings stopped. We didn't have them. Nothing was told. I'd ask about the rate study. It's not done, not ready, couldn't be told anything. In Benito, I said to our current CAO at the time, I want the ledgers for the utility. I will go through, I'll help you find the problem. We'll go through these, I'll go line by line by line. Refused. I said to him, that's something that any ratepayer should be able to have. Refused to give them to me, got mad, got up, paced, came back to the table, read to me, this has this, this has this, this has it, wouldn't tell me a thing. You will not get straight answers on this. To try and justify this is never, ever going to happen. And I can show you 100 questions that I've asked with numbers and none of it adds up. Could never get an answer. I don't know when the rate study came to be. I was utility committee last time from Benito. No information, not allowed. So I dug what I could on my own. I studied other utility budgets. It just doesn't add up. There's one on there, all of a sudden, what was it, 174,000 loss
Yeah, 1 year.
in 1 year. Just we were running deficits up till then, but I think they were in the 20 range. And
They varied, but yeah.
yeah, and then all of a sudden 174 grand. Poof. And then they just went from there. From that last CAO's mouth, he told me he was putting that, I don't know what to call it, human resources grievance settlement against our utility. I complained about that to the entire council, nobody would deal with it. It's a wasteland. I can't tell you what's in there. I'll stop there.
You're scaring me, Brad.
I get so upset when it comes to this utility.
You know-
It's unbelievable.
Unreal. Unreal.
The Public Utilities Board, I was speaking to their staff, because you don't speak to the board without a hearing. So I was speaking to an assistant that works for the board. So he says things like, my feeling is the board would do this, and my feeling is the board would do that. But it's like council, where you speak to the CAO, they say, I think my council will do this, but we'll have to see what happens. He feels that if we came to the Public Utilities Board with corrected numbers and some substantial explanation, the board would be receptive to this. He noted that during the comment period, he spoke to myself, at the time I wasn't on council. I don't know if he spoke to you or not, but he specifically noted that my conversation with them about my concerns with this utility had shaken the board to its core when they heard them. But the application was there and they had no choice but to say yes. So certainly if we tried to proceed with this as is, our day of reckoning will come at the public hearing, and there will be some very tough to answer questions for the board, because they wonder about this stuff too. But what we have right now is a resolution to attempt to rescind this application. To do that, we will have to go through these hoops of proving why these numbers are wrong, and then we would rescind it. And what we said to them was that we would file a new application with the corrected numbers, with the plan to do some capital budgeting for replacement.
Is that the sheet you gave us last time?
Yeah,
So this is just your feeling that you think those numbers are wrong, correct?
yes.
And if something happens and they're right,
If they were
we're in
right.
trouble then, or what?
If they're right, we get a 400% increase and we can't prove they're wrong.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
people of Benito essentially all have to pack up their houses and leave because they can't afford to pay for water anymore.
Given my history of working in the utility for 13 years, those numbers are impossible.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, I'm new here, so
I
I'm
know,
learning,
I'm
I'm learning
just
as we go,
saying.
yeah.
I think whatever it takes, whatever time it takes, you gotta make it right.
Like, consider this, in 2020, we're saying it costs $71,000.
Well, yeah, I was looking at
And in
that.
2021,
Yeah.
now we spend $145,000
Yeah.
doing the same
Yeah.
thing.
So I'm
In
thinking-
1 year, we doubled our expenses.
Yeah,
to
so I'm
do the
thinking,
same
did,
thing.
what broke, you know, what
Well,
did you repair?
Even simple stuff like all the overtime we paid there, we've tried to discuss different options, but we would never pursue different options. We would just talk and let it end at that. And the example I gave at the one time when we were arguing was, you go and you ask somebody to build you a deck, and they tell you $3,000, and they come and they bill you $4,500, and you're like, well, how come? And they look at you and say, well, I'd already worked 40 hours, so you're paying overtime now. That's what we're doing to people in Benito all the time. Because we don't care to deal with our staffing issues. We are making them pay overtime at that plant relentlessly. There's other communities that run part-time, semi-retired people for a fraction of the cost. They enjoy it. They need or want something to do. We won't even pursue that. You know, we have things we could look at, and it just wasn't ever looked at.
Do we wish to make a change to the current direction council gave, or are we good with administration and utility committee working towards finding real numbers and proving this should be withdrawn?
Oh, we should look into it.
Okay.
Sounds like we better prove ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Green team applications, much simpler
Sorry,
conversation.
before you go on, where's the closest plug-in in this room?
I don't know.
Yeah, right,
Coffee
One
pot,
like a garbage can, but
Oh, that coffee
coffee,
machine?
that,
One by the
coffee.
lake.
right here. There's gotta be something here.
You wanna-
Oh, behind here, okay.
yeah, yeah.
We hide it because hydro's expensive.
Green team applications. Applications are soon to be due. One time we did miss the deadline for applying, so this is coming. Applications are due January 16th of 2023. What is the will of council on what we want to do for applying for a green team? Historically, we've usually applied for 2 or 3. We're not necessarily always approved for 3, even if we apply for 3. But is it the will to apply again, and for how many?
Well, we might as well apply for the 3, and if they give us 2, fine.
And the way
Do we have the work for them, right?
We probably do.
Yeah.
The way it works is it's 50-cent dollars, so they essentially pay half their wages for the summer, we pay the other half. Typically, it's high school, college kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
employment for youth.
I'd say apply for the 3.
Is that fine with everybody?
Used to be 2 and 2, I believe.
So it's 4?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
2
well,
and 2, 2 for rural, 2 for urban.
Okay,
And sometimes we get 2, usually get 2 for Benito and for sure 1. But if you apply for 4 and you get 4, why
There's
not?
a strong likelihood the LED service plan will not provide for the LED to pay for their own green team members.
Well, then do 1 and 1. Share 'em.
There's a strong likelihood the LED service plan will no longer have an urban rural split proposed. That will be proposed that only services that are delivered to Benito separately are billed for the LED, which will be a departure to how we built Green Team before. Up until now, say we had 2 for Benito, they would be paid for only by Benito residents. They would never leave Benito. And there were concerns raised in the last couple summers about the amount of workload in Benito and if there was enough work. Just judging from the LED meeting that was held, the view of the LED, you can sort of jump in there if you want, is that the service plan will look more typical in 2023 than it has for some time, which would, you know, in the LED world, they receive plowing, for example, their sidewalks, and they receive sidewalks. So those things are paid for only by Benito. But removing snow from streets, for example, is a service we provide to the entire municipality. That would be part of at-large taxes. So I just don't want us to get too tied up on 2 for Benito, 2 for everywhere else, because we might be applying for 4 for the municipality, because we are one municipality.
Then you
So
don't-
we
yeah,
could
then
apply
you
for
don't
4.
need 4, then
No.
apply for 2.
And go for 3, I guess.
3?
Yeah.
I don't know how we wouldn't need 4. If
Have
we had
ever
work,
had 4?
But if you're saying that Benito doesn't need 2 people working there, that there's not enough work, that's what he just said. So if we're saying Benito doesn't need it and we're gonna share them, share 2 around. 2 go to Benito this day, 2 to go to Canville this day, 2, like the same thing.
Would Green Team be able to install address signs? Should we go down that path next
As
summer?
long as you can find green team member that applies, that's old enough to drive. Otherwise, they have to have someone else
Drive them
from,
around.
well, they have to have your foreman or someone drop them off, and that doesn't, it's, green team members are hard to find,
what does it hurt to apply for 4 if we only want 2?
We may only get to, if we apply for 4 and we don't use them.
We just
there's
have
no
the potential to
penalty.
take 4 if we
Right,
discover we have
and we
work.
may not even get 4 applications.
No, heck no.
So, you can apply for whatever you
It was a
want.
close
I
call
thought we
last
could
year
only
for
apply
any.
for 3 max.
No, you can apply for, you just won't get.
Okay, so we want to apply for 4, is that the feeling here?
Yeah, the roll's close, we can use 2, 3, 1, 4.
Okay, so we'll direct staff to prepare an application for 4. I believe that will likely come back as a resolution for us to approve later on, prior to this deadline. Let's skip 9.4 for a minute, we'll go 9.5, Christmas ad. So is it the will of council to place a Christmas advertisement in the Star and Times?
Yes.
Generally, yes, so we'll write a resolution up here, we'll have that for you in a second. I do not have the pricing for this, but I believe this is the ad we ran the other year. Is it, Jeremy? Probably the ad. I suspect this is what we ran last year, so it would just be repeating what we did last year. The publication comes out on the 27th, which is why it says not Merry Christmas, because it's really just holidays. That helps anybody along? Resolved that we purchase a Christmas greeting ad from the Star and Times. A mover, please.
Nope.
Councillor Blosha and Councillor Neely. Any discussion? Those in favor? That is carried. 9.6. Councillor McGregor may want to speak on this. Councillor Kushniryk and Councillor Burick have also spoken to me on this. Forensic audit. It's been requested to my chair a few times now that we look at options for conducting a forensic audit on the finances of Swan Valley West with a view to the finances as well as the resolutions that govern those finances. As we've discussed earlier tonight, there may be some call for that in utility. I can speak from experience on previous council that there were certainly actions taken that did not appear to follow the municipal act. Some of those were capital purchases of fire trucks that were done without a proper budgeting process or proper public approvals for them. There were also the questions we spoke of earlier about the substantial amount of money that moved through the municipality and resulted in naming rights for commercial entities that never directly donated to a project. I can advise that the governor and council, which is a nice way of saying the premier, at council ordered the Auditor General of Manitoba to audit Manitoba municipalities. Initially, they only indicated they would audit 1 or 2. My understanding is that the audit was expanded to 137 municipalities, that being all municipalities, but that not all municipalities will be audited in a full fashion. Some will be a cursory review. Some of them will be a much more in-depth review. Swan Valley West's name has come up in several circles of people indicating that the Auditor General intends to substantively audit Swan Valley West, both for possible financial irregularities and council conduct irregularities relating to resolutions and specifically the council code of conduct with a view to the weaponization of the council code of conduct. Both in our municipality and the municipality of St. Andrews. We don't know, we haven't received correspondence from them. So I'll look to the other councillors to speak on this. My initial take is that forensic audits are not cheap. They come with a cost. I would think if we wanted to go down that path, we would do well to speak to the Auditor General and ask their intentions. Because if they were to conduct a forensic audit on their dime instead of on ours, it may be beneficial. But Councillor McGregor, you are kind of a champion for this. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I don't know. Just looking at what we've walked into here. Like you look at this, utilities, that's a disaster. Nobody here can say it isn't.
But you need someone to explain it to you too.
No, I know, but
Yeah. No,
if it's done properly and audited, then it's really explained to all of us. And I think for us, it would give us a clean slate, and that's all of us. And my genuine hope is that everything's fine and everything's good, because it's the last thing we want. There's a big mess, but it seems like we need to have a look at it, do an audit, know where we're at, and just start at level 1, go from there. That's how I feel about it. And there were people during the election, granted, nobody ran against me, but I still did talk to people out and about, and they felt like they would like one. Some of the
Anybody
people
else?
that I did talk to, so I kind of,
Thoughts from other members?
It kind of gives us a peace of mind that we're all starting off, like RJ says, with a clean slate. We know what happened in the past and we just carry on. It doesn't fall on us 6 months from now if there's something wrong and we're cost for it. But anyways, it kind of scares me every time we have a meeting and the reserves you say are pretty low. Like, where's that money gone? Like, and then these bills that we all seem to be getting, they're all overdue. And we're paying them out. Like, why all the late fees and bills and all that? Like, we just paid $210,000, it was way overdue. We just paid a bill that was supposed to be paid in May. Like, but the audit will tell us, like RJ says, hopefully everything is okay, but if we find something wrong, well, it's not our issue. Not our fault.
well, it could be a guidance for us too.
Yeah.
You know, like there was things done like, not necessarily completely wrong, but not really the best way to do it. That's guidance for us too, moving forward.
I would like to get some clarification. Are we speaking only financial audit? The next thing on our agenda, 9.7, deals with Sarah Lake Road, which is a governance type issue, which you could audit as well. You know, we're going to hear more about that shortly, that essentially staff ran absolutely wild. And I have some numbers tonight to share about what we're going to have to do to fix some of those problems. So I guess I'm looking to those that are in favor of an audit. Are you talking just financial, or are you wanting to look at things like, how did we end up on somebody else's property building a road with no permission or permits?
Well, go ahead, did they not have a permit just to replace the culvert?
They had a permission to replace the culvert. They had no permission to be
Oh, the rest of it was all
Yes, extra.
extra. Maybe somebody was training how to use the track hole.
We'll get Sarah Lake Road.
Training purposes.
They likely started digging and the hill kept falling in.
No, this audit is, I guess that's the question you're asking, are they just doing financial, or are they doing everything?
That's the question I posed to you, and I'm certainly, I am not willing to bring a resolution before us tonight to do it. All I would be willing for us to consider is getting quotes on it. If we're wanting to go down that road, I would want us to seek quotes to find out what it would cost, and then come back and make some decisions if we're willing to spend that kind of money. And I would also recommend that, in addition to seeking quotes, if we were to do it, we would ask the Auditor General what their intention is, and say that we're looking for quotes on this. Are you doing it work anyway,
So we have a
do it?
choice then, to get it done or not?
We there's no, it's
The
totally
choice is
optional.
right here.
Yeah, it's, you know,
Whatever
we're not
we do.
required to perform a forensic audit. We have to do a yearly audit, and that audit's in progress. But the audit has been wrong many times before. The audit that we do essentially is a cursory overview of the municipality, where they say, does the bank account match what the computer says it should be? They don't go into who approved spending $100,000 on this without it coming to a council meeting. And they don't go into, did you actually consult with the public when you were required to do so on buying a fire truck? They don't touch those kind of things. And some of the issues that came up were the LUD of Benito. And my personal experience when I first joined council, and the auditors came and they presented their audit, and I said, gee, these numbers aren't right. Here's some things that are just aren't right. I'm telling you this is wrong. And they said, Councillor Gade, you just don't understand. You're new on council. You don't know how accounting works. You don't know how public sector accounting works. It's very different. You have a business, but you don't understand. So you just have to trust that these numbers are right, and you shouldn't really question them because that's what we do. And so I went away for a year, and I spent a year taking courses on public sector accounting. And then I came back a year later, and the same auditors came back, and the same audit came back for the year further. And I said, you know, these numbers aren't right. And they said, Councillor Gade, you don't know how public sector accounting works. These numbers, you just have to trust, but it's what we do. And I said, well, actually, I took a year of courses in that now, and I'll tell you what's wrong with them. And then Swan Valley West started restating their financial statements because the numbers were wrong, and the auditors weren't catching it because that wasn't their job. We had to set our audit threshold at $100,000, which means that any mistake less than $100,000 isn't seen as a mistake to get a clean audit. So any mistake that's ever been made here, each mistake can cost $99,999 each and not be caught in our audit that we perform every year because of our accounting threshold. Which troubles me, because you can have a lot of very expensive mistakes. If you had 5 of those mistakes, it'd be $500,000, and it wouldn't show up in the audit. You'd still get a clean bill of health. And our audits, by the way, have not been clean. Each year our audits are coming back with substantive concerns with our governance. So, do we want to seek quotes? Is there enough people here that want to do that? I suspect there may be some people that don't want to, just because I don't see everybody jumping on saying they want to do this. So, yeah, I like to find consensus before we bring a resolution to see what fail. Do we want to bring a resolution to seek quotes?
I'd say so. I'd get quotes.
I just don't see, I think you're right, you know, see if the province will pay first, and if the province will pay, I think we should pay. I as well have multiple people asking. I stepped outside from one meeting here out front, and a nicer old gentleman, I couldn't even tell you his name. First thing, are you guys going to do an audit? You know, fix the books. We may find nothing. The other aspect I look at is the people that we do hire to work in that office won't have problems that they're chasing. They won't have stuff come bite them in the butt a few months down the road. If you start from scratch at balanced books, at least we have balanced books. Not we think we have something, we find out we don't have something. As for the other aspect of it that you're talking about, the procedural part, what benefit do we gain from doing it other than I told you so's?
That would probably, I can only think of 2 benefits. One is that there'd be I told you so's, which I think isn't worth spending money on. You know, like, why would we spend any money on saying, oh, we told you so? It's dumb. The only other thing is that it keeps coming to the table since the election that we just don't understand and we're wrong about things when we say that this shouldn't have been done this way. I would tend to say that's also a told you so. So I'm not sure I would be willing to spend money on that, but you know, certainly if you've been watching these meetings, you know that there are times when we say this is done wrong and the answer is no, it's not, it was done right. Some of those things were not done right. So I couldn't support spending a bunch of money on governance audit because in my heart I know governance was bad. And the audit would tell us governance was bad. You know, seconds from now we're going to talk about governance in this Sarah Lake Road thing. We don't need an audit to know governance was bad and what happened there. So I would support the financial one, but I don't know that I would support a governance audit.
I can tell you that just by looking at our approved budget sheets that were audited with no courses, just looking at numbers, I found, I believe it was a $14,000 mistake that our CAO finance officer confirmed was a mistake. We were billed in the LUD $14,000 that never ever should have appeared there. And that passed the audit, no problem. So
So what do you think, have one or not have one?
I think we should have one, but I think we should approach the province first to see if they'll foot the bill.
It's kind of like if you don't have one, well, what are you hiding? Right? I mean, if the public is asking everybody about, you know, are you gonna have an audit, and we say no, the first thing they're gonna think is, what are you hiding?
What if we brought a resolution tonight that said something like, we investigate the options for a forensic audit? and then we would look to staff to speak to the Auditor General about their intentions and to get some quotes on what it would cost if we had to pay for it ourselves, and we'd come back here and discuss those options.
Yep.
Okay.
Would that be doable?
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring a resolution for that.
We might get one whether we want it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just.
Resolve that we investigate options for a forensic audit. So a resolution, resolve that we investigate options for a forensic audit. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Burick, is there someone who would second that? Councillor McGregor. Any further discussion? Those in favor? That is carried. Track Geotechnical, Sarah Lake Road, this is in your package. It starts with an email pointing out that we have a deadline of December 19th for dealing with this issue. So I won't do a lot of background here. There's an issue at Sarah Lake Road. We are currently trying to respond to two notice of they're tickets, two tickets, totaling about $4,000. The direction of council is to appear before a magistrate, plead guilty, and request a reduced fine. I have been attempting to do that for 3 weeks since I received that direction. Unfortunately, due to COVID and all the restrictions, I have yet been able to appear before a magistrate. The tickets are due tomorrow. We've had them extended 4 times already, and they're due tomorrow, but I have not yet been able to find a magistrate because you have to dial a number and wait on hold, and after a couple hours, I don't have any more time to wait on hold. Today when I tried, you couldn't even dial the number, it was just busy. So we will look at asking for an extension on the tickets again, because it's not us that's not showing up, it's them. Council did contract with Track Geotechnical before the election to perform a remediation report for the Sarah Lake Road. The number I saw was $12,000 for this report. I have heard it may have cost less than that. I have not seen an invoice yet, so there's hope that it was less. The summary here indicates a very cursory overview of what happened, that we did work without permits or permission, that we received a stop work order. We're still bound by that stop work order until such time as we present this report, which will now be sent to a bunch of places that are very grumpy. They will then approve this work plan. You'll notice probably the highlights of it are 4,200 yards of excavation, 8,000 square meters of erosion control blanket, another 8,000 square meters of topsoil and seed to reseed the hill. There are no prices in here if you're looking for that. These people didn't quote on it. They're simply telling us the work that has to be done. So the next step is that we have to take this to government. That'll be done shortly. They will approve this if they think this will work, and they likely will. That's what the engineer was for, was to tell us how to fix it. We are then responsible for doing all of this work or hiring it done to have the site remediated. And there's a picture of it there of what happened. And all of that happened from changing a culvert. There isn't much else to say other than that we need to direct staff to send this to government. They'll do that. And we probably should direct our public works staff to determine if we're capable of doing this work ourselves, or if we have to seek quotes from a contractor for it. One way or the other, the work has to be done. And the December 19th deadline, my understanding is to have the work done by then. They will likely be agreeable to an extension, because I don't know how we could possibly do that work in the winter. You know, this has dragged on so long now. They wanted it done before it snowed, and now that it snowed, it's going to have to be a spring project, obviously. But we'll get this filed with them. It's here for discussion if anyone wants to discuss anything on it.
It'll probably be more, because I imagine with the spring runoff, there's going to be more fill coming than what they said
It could be.
Today, eh?
Yeah. I still like, I don't quote this stuff for a living, it's not my kind of deal, but the people I've spoken to that looked at that hill, there's general agreement of this being $100,000 project, the repair work. I hope they're wrong. I would love to see it be a $10,000 project, but when you see the amount of dirt that needs to be moved and the amount of stuff that has to be done,
Yeah.
it's pretty tough to.
I think the man hours would be $10,000.
Could be. It took us 5 days of many people working to get to where we are. So it could be even more to get us back from that. We skipped 9-4, we'll go back there for a minute, and then we'll get into council reports. So Councillor Blosha and I have been working very hard to be good friends. Once upon a time, we were actually quite good friends, and then we kind of had a falling out for a little while, but we've been working on doing that more. So at one point, this got to be on the agenda because I think Councillor Blosha had some concerns and I had some concerns. We may have resolved all of those, but I didn't want to take it off the agenda without checking. So we'll look first to Councillor Blosha. If you have anything, you have concerns you want to talk about.
No, I'm working on it.
And the only thing I will mention is that I received a call from the mayor of Swan River. And it's childish. So we appointed Councillor Blosha to the Medical Facilities Foundation because she's been on that committee for some time and she's done good work there. She's always attended all the meetings. That essentially is a large part of the doctor recruitment, and also the CT scanner would come into that, all the things that have gone on with that. And as a council, we appointed to that, and that was fine. After we did the appointments, the mayor came to me and said, hey, have you done appointments yet? What do you think about appointing the Reeve to that committee instead of a councillor? Because the mayor is going to be on it from Swan River, and I'm going to ask the other councils to put their Reeves on it, so that the committee becomes the mayor and the 3 Reeves, and it's the head of councils together on this, because the CT scanner's a big project. And I said, we've already appointed Councillor Blosha, but is there a concern with that? No, he said it's fine. You know, no issue with that. That's what you want to do. I said, that's fine, but I texted Councillor Blosha and said, hey, the mayor's made this suggestion. How do you feel about it? And we had a discussion, and there was maybe a little misunderstanding. And, you know, certainly I wasn't suggesting that we remove Councillor Blosha from the committee. I was just saying, hey, what do you think of this? And I think we've settled that. The phone call I received from the mayor was because Bill Galloway called him to express concerns over why he was asking for Councillor Blosha to be removed from the committee. And that wasn't what he'd asked. And that wasn't what I had tried to explain. He had made a suggestion we could consider doing that. He certainly never asked for Councillor Blosha to be removed from the committee. And if he ever did ask, it would come to council, and I would say the mayor's asking her to be removed, and this is why. But it wasn't requested. What troubled me greatly was that Bill Galloway would call the mayor to discuss what the mayor had done with one of our council committee appointments. And I just don't understand why he's in the middle of that. And so that's a concern I have. You know, we had an election. He was Reeve. He's a very smart man. He's done a lot of good things to this valley. But he's not Reeve now. And to have him calling the mayor, purporting to have some sort of concerns about the mayor on behalf of this council, was troubling to me. A couple other things I wanted to mention of a more general nature. We have been doing some stuff in camera, and we certainly try to bring as much of it out as we can. But there have been 2 incidents already where information that we've discussed in camera has then been repeated back to me from members of the public that shouldn't have known it. And I have no interest in pursuing that, but please, when it's in camera, we try to share as much as we can with the public, but please keep in camera confidence as much as you can, because if it's in camera, I would hope there's a really good reason for it to be there. And if you have any concerns about being in camera, please be the first to say, I think this could be public instead, and let's make it public for all of the public, not just for whoever we happen to tell about it. And there was one incident where everything in camera was repeated back, but it was all wrong. It was clear it had come from the in-camera session, but the details were all messed up. which is even more dangerous because it was crap. But I can't say, no, here's the right stuff because it was in camera, but what they're telling me, I know it came from the in-camera session, the details were right, but everything was wrong about it. So please watch that as best as you can, because we want to share everything we can with the public, but the stuff that we have to keep secret, we just have to keep secret until such time as it can be shared. Anybody else want to jump in on discussion about that, or we're good? Council committee reports is next, section 12. Councillor Zbirun, you're up first.
I think I just about said everything I had to say.
Good job.
The rec center, they discussed fees, curling fees, and setting their bar chicken wings, whatever they were selling, and family day we talked about, and that's about it.
Would you be able to bring us their budget? Have they passed one, or when they do pass one, could you bring it for us?
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
good. I think some of us would like to just
Okay.
see it, because
Yeah.
we need to make some decisions in budgeting here to make sure we're supporting them appropriately.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else? You good?
No, I'm good.
Councillor Kushniryk.
So I attended fire and utility committee meetings and the LUD meeting. I guess we'll start with the LUD. It was fairly basic, it's our first one. I requested the financials so we could kind of get on track of where we're at with spending and stuff, but we weren't able to get those. We did request a quote to be given to us from council for the cost of garbage services and stuff to be done. I don't see it on here, I don't know if it was ever brought forward or anything like that, so.
Did you pass a resolution?
Yes, yep.
And we should have seen.
It should be, but it wasn't here. So we're looking for a cost of providing that service to the LUD. Another thing that we did discuss is much like was mentioned earlier, for a few years now, we've been trying to switch over to a proper service plan. Even if you look at the Municipal Act, it gives a sample of how we should present a service plan. We've never done that. We've always been held to a budget system, which isn't right, so we're gonna be looking at something like that. I think that's basically the basics on the LED. Utility, we've basically gone over. We've discussed pretty in depth on the utility. Fire, you know what? We spent a couple hours with the fire guys. It was a pretty good meeting. With some changes and, you know, I'm sure Councillor Gade will have a full description on that, but I just think we had a really good meeting there. There was a lot of good feelings and everybody was pretty happy. They're looking at the way they're structuring stuff maybe a little bit differently, and we discussed how they would spend their budget allowance and procedures of how they can go ahead buying stuff. I don't know if I have much more to add on that.
All right, thank you. Councillor McGregor, sorry, question there.
How many men are they running now?
How many men?
Yeah, how many are
Oh,
volunteers?
off the top of my head, I don't know. There must be close to a dozen, hey?
I think I suspect there's at least 12.
Yeah.
There's 12 that need masks, but I think there might be a couple that don't need masks.
Okay.
Councillor McGregor.
First meeting's tomorrow night, so I'll fill you in the next meeting.
Good job. Councillor Blosha.
Yeah, I haven't had any committee meetings, just a special meeting.
Okay. Councillor Neely.
Well, I had a committee meeting on the 9th. At least I thought I did. I went all over town looking for it, couldn't find it.
I told you where it was.
People can say what they want, but that's dedication.
I even went to the vet clinic. I thought there was something going on there. Honest, I did.
I'm gonna have to buy you coffee or something for that.
I'd file a complaint if
It
nobody
was the
else
wrong
showed
day.
up.
Lunch is looking
Told them
good.
the right
okay.
day, yeah. Wrong day.
I wanted to pass along to you, Councillor Neely.
That's all.
You're on airport committee and you have a meeting.
Yeah,
right away.
I think I've got to check with, I'm gonna phone Terry Ganita and find out.
The mayor, at our last meeting here, November 8th, we had that offer to purchase for the airport land. So I did discuss that with the mayor when I saw him and said, hey, do you know anything about this? He didn't.
Well, that was from Stephen
Yeah.
Gamache.
So I sent a copy of that offer to the airport commission, CFO Ganita. So it will be coming to your meeting for you guys to discuss and figure out what it's
I don't
about.
think there's enough room there, is there?
Well, it's,
I know them planes can take off pretty quick, but when they got a load on sometimes,
It will make its way there, so you'll see it. Councillor Burick.
I attended a Swan Lake Watershed District meeting, and they wanted a representative from Swan Valley West for the Woody River Sub-District. Unfortunately, they had no quorum. So couldn't go through with the meeting, so it was more or less just a social evening. We went through the projects, some of the projects, not all the projects, but the projects were done in last year. But I mean, they had no quorum, so they couldn't pass resolutions or anything.
Is
Well-
that,
Who, well,
Swan Lake Watershed.
who was supposed to be at the
how,
meeting?
Well, their board that they're having, yeah. And we were invited, I was invited on behalf of Swan Valley West as the Woody River Sub-District. Next meeting, they're gonna invite another one from another sub-district, user on there.
well, there's three of us.
Yeah, so they'll invite you at one other meeting and you at another meeting, and then in January, we're having the elections to the boards, to the
Now-
sub-district boards in January.
who is, I don't have my committee list, but who is the person that always goes there? Because somebody's on the main board from here, right?
If you're elected to that board.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
You have to
either
do-
staff or you guys, I received a call from one of our citizen reps saying they're not going to be there anymore, they want a replacement. So I think by my count, that is we need 2 new citizen reps for Swan Lake Watershed. So if we can just research that, please. And then we can come back and appoint some people. Once we'll advertise, we'll do whatever, but we'll make some appointments before those January
Okay,
elections.
yeah.
Because that needs to happen.
Byron and I've never been there, so it'll
Yeah.
be new to us.
Good. Anything else, Councillor Beer?
Nope, that's it, just that one.
I hate to tell you, I didn't write your report, I just have point form notes for the Reeves report this week. So I was at A&M last week, and I want to say that I so encourage you guys, if you can make the spring one or the fall one, and I know some people simply can't, but if you can ever make one of those meetings, you'll be so happy to be there. It was such a good time, and I don't mean it was a good social time, it was a good time for being a counselor. The one day I began the conference at 8 a.m., I left my hotel room and I returned to my hotel room at 11:45. So you got your money's worth that day. It was a full day. I did take some breakout sessions, so I took one on dealing with difficult people. I don't know what I'll ever do with that because maybe when we deal with the town or something, we won't need it around here. I did meet with some ministers. We did not request minister meetings this year with ministers, and we had that opportunity, but that opportunity was probably before the election, and so it wasn't something that we were able to participate in as a new council. But next year, certainly we should be doing that. The town did that. And I did meet with Mayor Jacobson and Reeve Mahalchuk and Reeve Bierman at AMM. We sat down for about an hour there as heads of council, and we discussed various things. We discussed the CT scanner, where we're at with that, and there'll be a request coming shortly from the town of Swan River for us to send another letter, which will be fine. We also discussed meeting with ministers, and we would like to, as the heads of council, recommend to all of our councils that rather than Swan River asking for a minister and Swan Valley West asking for one, that by the time we're doing that again, we'll present as the group of 4 municipalities. So we'll request the entire valley meet with the Minister of Infrastructure or the Minister of Justice. There are other areas of the province doing that now, and you certainly get a lot more attention and respect. You get the meetings you want because you're representing such a large area. And our valley really is confined, right? Like we're all in this together. So we looked at doing that. We also agreed at that meeting that we would hold scheduled meetings of the heads of council. And we looked at doing them annually. We talked about biannually, we talked about quarterly, and there was a good discussion, and the end result of the discussion is that we have agreed we will meet monthly. So each month the head of the 4 municipalities will get together for an hour. The next meeting is being hosted by me, which means I have to pick the date and we all have to go, and I think I have to buy them lunch. But the point of those meetings is that we felt that we haven't always had great communication between our councils, and we wanted that opportunity to say, hey, what's going on in your council? What's going on there? And talk about some of those issues that affect all of us, and make sure we're always seeing each other so it doesn't get to be 5 or 6 months before we see somebody. So we're going to try and do that as best we can. We'll meet here in the first part of December before it gets too close to Christmas, and we'll try again in January. And just have those communication lines so we can always kind of know what's going on everywhere. The ministers I did meet with, I met with at the icebreaker session. So I hosted a table that apparently was very attractive. So I had the deputy premier sit with me for about half an hour and discuss a variety of topics, which is kind of nice. We can get the ear of the deputy premier for a while and talk about things that are important to the area. I had several other cabinet ministers drop by and some MLAs as well. MLA Wochuk was there for the entire evening. He sat with me and we had a great time. Towards the end of the evening, the town of Swan River Council, many of them came as well. So they were there as we met with some of those different ministers. It was a social setting, it wasn't a formalized meeting, but that is part of what's so important about AMM is you get to have those socialized meetings too, where you sit down and you may be sharing a beverage while you talk about some of the issues, because you're never really talking about each other's kids, you're talking about the stuff that matters. So it's good. I was invited to the legislature. That was part of some of those cabinet ministers I saw and the deputy premier that night. So I attended with the Swan River Council. Their entire council did go this time, so their CAO and their 7 council members were there. So we all attended the legislature together on the Wednesday afternoon. So we were there for some house business and question period. What I found exciting was that the legislature actually stopped the proceedings. So about 20 minutes into question period, they paused the clock. If you've never been there, there's 40 minutes for question period, and when the 40 minutes is up, they're done. But if something comes up, they'll stop the timer so they can deal with it and then start the timer again. So they paused the timer about 20 minutes in, and the deputy speaker was running the show that day, and he actually acknowledged that the mayor of Swan River and the Reeve of Swan Valley West were in the gallery and sitting side by side, which I know it sounds silly, but that's how you get the attention of people in Winnipeg. Like, you want those people to know who we are, because that's when we have a concern, that's how you get action. And then a little later in the question period session, the Minister of Municipalities, Minister Clark, she's from Gladstone, if you remember Clark's of Gladstone, that was her. She actually spoke about Swan Valley West and Swan River and having us there, which was good. You know, the more time we can get that, the better. I did see all the other councils, at least someone from them. Mountain was only able to send their Reeve. Minnetonka's Bozeman had, I think, 4 councillors there, the Reeve and 3 councillors. So we spent some time together as well, just making sure we have those lines of communications open. Public Utilities Board meeting, we heard about how that went. I've also met with Don Bobick. That was somewhat at the direction of council. That was regarding possibility of him doing training here. He would like to meet with all of council. We're struggling on a date because his council meetings and our council meetings tend to conflict. But we will find a date, and he would like to come speak to all of us about what he would be willing to do for training a foreman, training staff, and bringing some of his knowledge back that we lost when he left. So he's very agreeable to that, and he wants to see us all. After our meeting, November 8th meeting, I had a meeting with Stan Anderson, Fire Chief Anderson. It was requested as the fire chief and the Reeve have a meeting. That isn't exactly how it turned out. He brought some people with him. So I met with a group of people. We met in chambers here. There was a request that I go meet with him at his house and a group of people, and I turned that down. I thought it would be more appropriate for the meeting to be here, just in case things got out of hand. It didn't. It was a respectful meeting for the most part. There were some strong feelings there. For a while we talked about fire departments. The meeting moved past that to discussing our relationship with the town of Swan River. And there was a point in the meeting where it was made clear that while I think we all strive to work with the town on things, some people don't. And so I did indicate that I feel our direction of council is that we wish to try to work with our neighbors whenever possible, and that we will not do things and spend our time antagonizing them needlessly. And that, if you want to know more about that, you'll have to ask in camera. That's as far as I can go here. But there was some discussion on that. While we're on the fire topic, at the fire meeting we held, because of COVID-19 and workplace health and safety, the Benito firefighters all need to have their own masks. They needed them 2 years ago, but for some reason council wouldn't approve them. Council did then approve them, but the CAO at the time refused to allow the purchase of them, even though it was budgeted for. That's been an ongoing issue for some time. They still have not purchased the masks, so they've gone 2 years having to share masks when they're not supposed to be. They were fitted for masks. We could purchase those masks for them. There's a second option though. We have masks sitting at Thunder West that would fit them. So it would be good if you could provide some direction. If we were to take the ones from Thunder West, then we would need to take 6 masks. That would give Benito the ones, they had one for each firefighter. We have made a decision that Thunder West is to sit there and be ready essentially if we wanted to put it back in service. We would then be 6 masks short at Thunder West. Masks are available, so it's not hard to get them. We could replace the Thunder West ones. My thought process was somewhat that we could avoid spending the money for a couple months for sure if we let 6 of them go to Benito for now. And then if we need them at Thunder West, we can simply replace them and pay the bill. And if we don't need them at Thunder West, we saved buying 6 extra masks. What's the thought of everybody on that? Do we send 6 over or do we keep Thunder West exactly as it is? And buy 6? Because they have to have the masks, we either have to buy them.
Well,
or
we gotta have
get them to-
masks, you can't, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say take the 6, and if they need them, buy them.
I say buy them new masks and let them have them. It's their fire
Are
department.
these new masks at Thunder West?
They've probably been worn.
Could be used for training. Benito actually suggested those. They asked if they could have them instead of purchasing new ones. So it wouldn't be us saying you have to have these. They asked for them. And I said I didn't know how council would feel about giving them to them.
By moving 6 from Thunder West, we don't run the risk of having surplus masks. We can replace them, and it's essentially no different than while Thunder West was in operation, they were using a Benito radio, right? They had that radio, it wasn't that they took the radio, they borrowed the radio. This is something easily replaceable.
Well, these masks, they each have their own, you said.
So there's, first they
And
say
if
they're-
somebody else wears it, then they don't wanna wear it, is that?
so what Benito is doing is they're using cleaning wipes. So if I go to fight the fire first, I wear the mask for 15 or 20 minutes and fight the fire. When I'm tired, now the mask comes off me and they try to sanitize it. And then they put it on the next firefighter and they go to fight the fire.
Oh.
So what they're wanting is that my mask would stay with me and the next firefighter's mask would stay with them. They've never had enough. Thunder West had a mask for each person. They are fitted, but small, medium, and large. So what Benito needs is 3 medium, and apparently there are 6 medium, sorry, there's 6 mediums sitting there.
But he just said they were easily ordered. They have a budget, we have a budget, order them, they need them, leave them there. Because essentially what you're saying is, start taking things away from Thunder West because we're not gonna reopen it. And that's not what I want to hear.
Essentially what you're saying is spend $6,000 on masks we may never need, because we could use the $6,000 of them from there. And if we need them, spend the $6,000 to replace them a week.
We can replace them just like ordering a TV or something, like they're available. It's not a back order issue, it's not a we can't get them issue. They're available. And we've already told the guys in Benito for 2 years they couldn't have them.
That's not true.
It is true.
It was right.
If the request didn't come to the council table,
So the request
Well-
came to the CAO several times.
okay, so they didn't come to the council
And
table,
the
so
council
don't say
approved,
that
the
council
council
didn't
approved
approve
the
it.
budget for the masks and the CAO wouldn't provide them.
We just said they waited. I didn't say why they
No.
waited. I just said they waited for 2 years. They haven't got. New department opens, bang, they've got. They're sitting there not being used. It makes no sense to make guys sit there with wipes and wipe out masks. That's something
No, I'm not
I
saying
wouldn't
that,
do
but you
anyways.
said they were readily available, order them.
But
So
that's
it's
like
chance you'd
saying
like to make a donation for the government amount of the masks.
That's $6,000, Carrie.
we may need or we may never need. Because if we buy 6 more, if Thunder West runs, they have theirs. They're still sitting there. If Thunder West doesn't run, we now have 6 more masks than we have to have that we will get pennies for on the dollar.
That was just my opinion, thank you.
Any other opinions you guys want to share? We haven't heard from enough people to have consensus one way or the other.
I'd say take them from Thunder West, I'd say take them.
Councillor
And then
Zbirun,
like Councillor,
sorry. We got
Like Councillor Kushniryk says, if they need them there, we'll just replace them.
Councillor Zbirun, what do you think?
It's not $6 or $60, it's
I know, but
our money.
it's, I don't want them to go without, but I mean,
Well, they're not,
you don't, you're like you're stealing from Paul to feed Mary or something, you know, like, I don't know.
But we brought foam, hose, I can't even remember all the things, the radio. Multiple things came from Benito to here in the same fashion, right? This department couldn't even open their doors once without that radio. That's a municipal mask. It's not a Thunder West mask.
Our bylaw seems to provide that we have one fire department with somewhat two locations with two different hall names, but it is the same municipality. We'll come back to you, Councillor Neely.
Smoke time?
helps you think.
In a long time. I
Councillor
don't know what to say.
Like they're there, they're not being used.
I understand
Use
that,
them.
Brian. I'm just thinking that the optics of it all, I guess, is what the word is.
So if Benito shop had 6 chainsaws sitting in a pile and the guys in the north end said they needed chainsaws, would we buy 6 more chainsaws, or would we say those are sitting, let's move them up north, and if they happen to need one, they can
No,
grab
I'm
one?
not saying that, Brad, but because the Benito is not on hold, you know what I mean? I'm
But
looking
the
at,
economics of it versus the feelings of it.
I don't know what to say.
Councillor McGregor.
Well, I think if we have them, we should use them. Replace them later if we need them.
Okay, Councillor Zbirun, come back to you.
It's just, I got the feeling that if we take them, they'll never ever get replaced.
I think like legally they have to have them. Each one of them has to have one. So if Thunder West operates, we will replace them because they have to have them.
Torn between, the guys need them in Benito, and they go to a fire, well, I mean, are we gonna put somebody's life in jeopardy because they don't have the mask?
But they, like, what they're saying, they're saying that they can get masks. But if they want to, we can order masks, it's not like we can't order
Yeah.
them, like he's saying both ways, but
Yeah.
I just feel like, yeah.
I know, I mean, I feel the same way, it's like if you take them, then you're
You're putting
ripping
more,
that part up.
you're putting more finality over there
Yeah.
that shouldn't be there yet.
But on the other hand, if these guys need them, they go to a fire and they need them,
They just keep wiping them with the,
well, I know they keep wiping them, but I've been there and done that. Not so much wipe them, but
If we looked at it from another angle too, just the financial aspect, and you presented option A and option B to the ratepayers and said, which would you rather we do? We use what we already have, and we will replace them if needed. We'll have a standing thing that if Thunder West Fire is up, that we automatically order 6 masks. Would you rather we spend money on masks that may never be used? We could have given,
Of course not.
6,000, what's that?
of course not, I mean, but, man,
So I was somewhat of the thought that that would be not a contentious issue that would take that long, but it was. So I don't think I would be comfortable proceeding without a resolution, because I kind of assumed that we were just, oh yeah, it's a good idea, and do it, but obviously that's not the feeling.
it's
So,
still a touchy.
yeah, so we will look to bring a resolution, perhaps after in camera, or we'll see what happens. We'll do something. Sort of like road tickets, we talked about payroll and payables, I think we've talked about safety issues, that's coming in camera, but there's a little bit of it that we should have public, so I wanted to mention that. I have in front of me an improvement order form from the 11th of May for improvements. We have not done these. I was contacted by Workplace Health and Safety today. If we don't take immediate compliance action, we will be fined $2,500 for refusing to comply. The Workplace Health and Safety Officer indicated that previous council and CAO absolutely, completely refused to comply with this order for improvement. The order required that we provide training to an officer. I can't mention the name because we're here in camera. We'll talk about who it is and what we can do for training for them. But I think the public has a right to know that we had a safety concern that's been pending since May and simply refused to address it. The total cost to address this order was $0 if we had done it in May. They held off on the fine because of the election. They told me today they had intended to write the fine in October, but they said because there was an election, they were hoping for a new council, they would not write the fine in hopes that we would do the free option that would put us in compliance and not have a $2,500 fine and then still have to do the free option after that. So we can get into more details later, but it should be mentioned. Mayor Jacobson won an election today, AMM district. We talked about that for a minute last night. Today he won the election of that, so he will now be part of the provincial AMM board to represent our valley. He asked us at the heads of council meeting what we thought he should do. We gave him direction that we thought he should run and should represent our valley. So we congratulate him on that because it's good for him to have won, and it will only be good for the valley to have someone there discussing our needs more so. And there was a question from a ratepayer earlier about a human resources matter. It was yesterday we passed a resolution in the public portion of the meeting terminating the employment of Sheila Hawkins. I've received a question from them and from several other people today about why we did that, so I wanted to address that briefly. I would love more than anything to publicly say the reasons we do everything. That's my belief in everything, but human resources matters are special in that we simply can't disclose every single thing about human resources. Some of the people that contacted me today said, well, you better tell us because you know we'll hear the other side of the story, and that is unfortunately the cross we bear as council. We're not able to disclose publicly why we took that action, but I would assure the public that has concerns about that action that council gave it deliberation at length. We talked about it for some time, and the majority of council felt that was the best action, and that is unfortunately all we are able to say on human resources matters, whether it's a CAO or whether it's the person that washes the windows. That's how it is. We simply can't disclose more. So unfortunately, that is where we will have to leave it. And if the rumor mill doesn't run amok, that would be nice, but it probably will. That concludes committee reports. We would typically take a break for a few minutes. We have a camera coming up. I would expect there might be one or two resolutions following in camera. We're not sure there will be any. We'll see. But if we want to take our break now, we'll go into camera when we return from the break. That works for everybody? Yep.
Reeve, Gade, are the gallery going to be able to respond on any of the business covered tonight?
At current, the procedures bylaw does not allow for the gallery to speak.
So
certainly we could recommend to council to change that, but there had been a long-standing process where the gallery was allowed to ask questions. Several times it was suggested, in fact, even by myself, that be committed to the procedures bylaw so that could happen. Unfortunately, council chose not to do that. We are due to review our procedures bylaw imminently, so we should start doing that at the next meeting. And certainly, I think Mr. Medwood and probably also Ms. Salama would encourage us that we should look at including that in our procedures if we want to do that.
I just find it quite a different statement that you once said that you're going to go and work forward to have more involvement, and now council has pulled the portion for the ratepayers to be included in the meeting.
I understand understand the concern. It's not so much the council has chosen to pull it, it's that previous council failed to follow the law once again. And this council is at the moment following the law. And I think just from the look around the table, council may wish to change the law, but at the moment we're following it, and we'll have to make changes to it if we want to do that again. So we bid those on the gallery. Good night. Good night. We have all returned from our break. I have a resolution resolved that pursuant to section 1523 is amended Municipal Act. The council as a whole shall go into camera and close the meeting to continue discussions regarding various HR concerns and workplace health and safety. Mover, please. Councillor Burick, second by Councillor Kushniryk. Does anyone, we're limited to only talking about those things when we're in camera when we do this, which is the legal requirement. If anybody wanted to add something else, now would be the time you'd say, oh, we need to talk about, and we'd write it on here. So everybody's good with just various HR concerns, workplace health and safety?
What are we gonna talk about, names for bigger operators, or is that in here? Is that
That's
HR?
HR.
That's
Yep.
HR? Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. So we have some resolutions arising from in-camera matters. Oh, fun person apparently. Resolved that we approve the use of 6 masks for use by the Benito Fire Department that are currently at Thunder West Fire Department. Does anyone wish to move that? Councillor Burick. Does anyone wish to second? Councillor Kushniryk. Discussion on that resolution.
Get her done.
Hearing none, call the question. Those in favor? Those opposed? It's carried. Resolved that we accept the resignation of Richard Ferrand effective immediately. Is there a mover? Councillor Zbirun. A seconder.
Brian wants in on this one.
Personal.
Councillor Burick. Any discussion on the resolution? On behalf of council, we wish Mr. Ferrand well and his future endeavors. Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Resolution that we resolve to implement the changes to the out-of-scope positions as agreed by council. A mover, please. Councillor McGregor. A seconder. Councillor Neely. Any discussion? Those in favor? That's carried. Resolve this meeting now adjourn at.
Can we do that? Can we do that, Bill? We shouldn't have
Stop.
extended it. We shouldn't have extended it for 30 minutes, right?
We should extend it, and we also have section 14, notice of motion. We have a notice of motion coming forward.
Oh my goodness.
Do we have to extend it first or no?
We'll find an extension resolution while you do that.
So I'm a little bit great at this, do I just have to read this?
No, you just have to hand it to me.
Okay, well, we'll just hand it to you.
Thank you.
That's simple.
We received a notice of motion to review or reverse the decision of council. Like Councillor Kushniryk, you hereby give written notice that I will, the next regular meeting of council, introduce a motion to reconsider resolution numbers 2022-513 and 2022-512, dated October 25th, 2022, regarding suspensions, dated this November 29th, 2022, signed by Mr. Kushniryk. Notice is thus received. It will be on the next agenda. Resolved that we do agree to extend the meeting past 11 o'clock,
11 a.m.
11 p.m.
11 p.m.
I move it, please.
No, I'm not moving that one. I'll put that one.
Councillor Kushniryk,
Illegal. I'm not putting my hand up.
Councillor Burick. Any discussion? Those in favor? Carried.
Well, we couldn't pass it in camera, so passing it on.
Resolve this meeting now adjourned at 11:35 p.m. Moved by Councillor Blosha.
Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Neely. Any discussion? Those in favor? That is carried. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your work tonight.
Good night.
Ladies as well.
I was like,
Can I-